Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 263 of the Ask Abhijit show. I hope everybody is doing fantastic. Everybody's doing great. I'm doing fantastic. So let's see who all is there on the live chat. Who all do we have with us? I can see Vidhi Manyar, anonymous scientist, Harshay, Pranay Paul from Kolkata, Mystic SK, Komal Singh from Melbourne, Abhi Chandel 005, Harsh, Global Citizen, Devourer of Worlds, Shri Watson, Dhruv Durya, Samarth Tripathi, Dheeraj Kamath, Geopolitical Dubey from Indore, Harshay, Yeti, Anshul, Kumar Kanishko, Mr. 88ers, Antaryami RB, Oscar Madison from Texas, Rahul Dunake, Rathod Hiren, Rishikesh Das Gupta, Avinash, Manisha Mehti, Anshul, Rishikesh Chaudhary, Chetan Aradhya, Shubham Dubey, Animesh Paul, Samarth, Malik Sayad, Sunkist, Anonymous, Bindusara, Mitra Ghat, Krishna Nayak, Vihan Patil, Gautami, Vamshi Kalem, McLevin, Vikash PJ, Avinash, Nuro, Kumar Kanishk, Seneca from Dhaka, Random Skull, Alvin Rodriguez, Kishore Hitanshu Mehta, Gaurish KB, Henul Raj, Sagar TU, Divyam Chauhan, Siddharth, Ayush Yadav, and so many other people. So thank you so much, all of you, for being on the live chat. And let us take some questions. Take some questions. I can see there's a lot of questions already. So let's get going with the questions. What do we have? Kumar Kanishk says, what was the reason for the Royal Indian Navy mutiny and how big was it? The Royal Indian Navy mutiny happened because it was at the end of the Second World War. The Second World War had ended, and all the Indian sailors, etc., who had fought for the British all across the world, Europe, and so on and so forth, they were brought back to Bombay. It was then called Bombay, not Mumbai. It was called Bombay back then. They were all put in the barracks. And they were very poorly mistreated. They were not given proper salaries. They were not allowed to be discharged. They were just made to sit there. And they were treated in a very harsh way. There was a lot of racism against them from their senior officers. So eventually they got fed up with it, and they took control of the entire Indian Navy, Royal Indian Navy. It was big. You had ships, every single ship, apart from two or three, we always have some traitors, right? But apart from two or three ships, every other ship mutinied. So you had ships in the Gulf of Malacca. You had ships off the coast of Aden, off the coast of Yemen. You had ships in the Persian Gulf. Then you had ships on the west coast of India, east coast of India, near Sri Lanka, near Diego Garcia. All of these mutinied. It was enormous. But the great Mr. Gandhi came in the way and he ended the mutiny. Very superb man, Mr. Gandhi. Kumar Kanishka says, how did the West infuse civic sense in their public to follow rules as India's birth rate is going down? Is this a good thing to reduce burden on resources? Well, there are two different questions, completely separate. How did the West infuse civic sense in their public? By applying the rule of law, by imposing harsh punishments. That's how they did it. So you don't necessarily need to impose harsh punishments, I would say. All you need to do is to ensure that if you break the rules, you will be punished, even if the punishment is mild. But who wants to be punished over and over again? So they'll change their habits, right? And their attitude and behavior. So the West, they imposed the rule of law. They ensured that anybody who broke the civic sense and whatnot would be punished. The punishment was guaranteed, right? So that's how they made it happen. Now, India's birth rate, it's a terrible thing. India's birth rate is going down. We need our population to come down eventually to about 300 or so million, like it always was, but that should happen over a couple of centuries, not in 20, 30 years. Otherwise, everybody will be 60 plus years old. The average median age of the population will rise, and there'll be very few young people left. That's a disaster. So, it's not good. Mr. 88ers says, what was the Taiping Rebellion? Well, you are taking us back in history now. It was a civil war that happened in China in the 1850s all the way to the 1860s. And I forget the names of the individuals, the Chinese names I can't remember, but the person who led the rebellion was a convert to Christianity. He said that he was the son or brother or something of Jesus Christ. So apparently Mr. Christ has a brother, and this Chinese gentleman was that. And this Chinese guy who led the rebellion wanted to completely completely change the nature of Chinese society, make China a Christian nation, and so on. And he gained a lot of followers apparently. And this went on for about 10-15 years, this rebellion. And I don't know what the numbers are, the actual death toll is, but it's anywhere between 20 million to 100 million. And eventually the guy was found and executed. His son became the successor. He was also executed. At least one of them was executed, and so on. So it was a civil war which devastated China. And it was a Christian insurrection against Chinese civilization, the Taiping Rebellion. Yati. Well, thank you so much, sir, Mr. Yati. Thank you. Harshaya says, Sar, what's a think tank? Explain deeply. A think tank is a collection of individuals who share some kind of expertise in a certain domain. And they come together and they produce original research and original ideas about this domain. And they write reports and things, and they prescribe courses of action that need to be taken in order to make the domain a better place, that sort of thing. So one of the simplest things is a geopolitical think tank. This is, you have geopolitical think tanks in India, right? So it's a group of people who come together and who write up reports, and they sometimes they're commissioned by somebody. Maybe the government commissions them, or maybe some private company commissions them, and so on. So that's a think tank. And for example, let's say you're a big company. Okay, let's say you're a multinational company. And if you're a multinational company, if you have assets and holdings across the various parts of the world, you are exposed to geopolitical risk in various shapes and forms. So you want to be able to know what's coming, what could be coming, and how to deal with it. What's the best course of action? So you hire experts, you commission them, you pay them whatever money, and you tell them to create these reports, forecasting. Have you watched Geostrategy with Abhijit Chavda? That's forecasting. Have you watched Indian Interest? That's forecasting. I give scenarios, scenario A, scenario B, scenario C. This could happen in this much time with this much probability of happening. And my scenarios are typically very spot on, aren't they? And so on. So I'm like a one-man think tank, but typically you have 15-20 people doing what I do. So that's a think tank. So you typically paid to do these things either by the government or by a private company, multinational corporation, and so on. And you do the research for them, and you give them recommendations, deeply researched recommendations. You write white papers and so on and so forth. So that's a think tank. So I'm a one-man think tank, essentially. Achintya Anand says, do you know about business plot Wall Street push to overthrow FDR? I'm not aware of this. I'm sure it must have happened, but I haven't read about this. So, sorry, je ne sais pas. Geopolitical Dubai. Well, first of all, happy birthday, sir. It's your birthday, so happy birthday. I wish you lots and lots and lots of very happy, very robust returns of the day. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. All the best. Keep going. Shubhankar Kulkarni says, Timur seems to be a better general compared to Alexander. Started from Uzbekistan, conquered Persia, won battles in winter in Russia, sacked Delhi, imprisoned Sultan Bayezid. Methods were brutal but superior. Well, I haven't done that's an interesting point that you're raising. How much, the question you would have to, so it's an interesting comparison that people typically don't do. I've done a comparison in the past on a different podcast about, for example, Alexander versus Chinggis Khan, and I demonstrated that Chinggis Khan was far superior. Now, it's clear that Timur wasn't superior to Chinggis by any standards, but Alexander versus Timur, that's interesting. So to do a proper comparison, you would have to, the simplest form of comparison is to understand what was the size of Timur's empire at its peak and what was the size of Alexander's temporary possessions at the peak of his conquests, and find the surface area and compare that, and so on, and how many battles did each of them fight and how much difficulty, and so on and so forth. So it's an interesting comparison. I haven't personally done it, and off the cuff, I won't be able to give you a proper answer, because I would need data, and I'm not going to sit and do the data analysis now because I'm doing this live stream here now right now. But it's a very interesting point that you're raising here. Maybe he's better, so I look into it. Obviously, both were very brutal warlords. Um, and it's not me who says that about Alexander, it's various Western writers who said that. He was essentially a robber and a thief on a grand scale, on a vast scale. And the same applies to Timur, no question. Were Timur's methods more brutal than Alexander, or were Alexander's methods more brutal? I'm not sure. I'm sure there would be a special element of cruelty when it comes to Timur, but Alexander himself was very cruel. He crucified tens of thousands of people because they opposed him, and he sold so many people into slavery and burned villages alive and things like that. So both were brutal. Okay, Yati says, what's the science behind meditation? I'm doing it for the past 2 years to improve my concentration, but I don't know how to validate its effectiveness. Am I wasting my time? Look, it's a tradition, and it's something that goes back tens of thousands of years. Not tens of thousands, let's say thousands of years. It's something that's part of our culture, it's part of our civilization, and you've heard so many great people who have been meditators, right? So I'm sure there is something to it. I'm not sure about the science behind meditation. You've had some Western research done about meditation, but in India, nobody has done any proper scientific studies about meditation because our researchers, I don't know what they do. So when it comes to the Western research about meditation, you can see that the brain enters a different state. If you are an experienced meditator, not just experienced, but if you are a really powerful meditator, which means you know how to really go deep into that, then you can see that the brain waves change, a lot changes, the person becomes really calm, and they become kind of immune to various kinds of extreme temperatures, extreme cold, and so on and so forth. So there is definitely evidence that meditation is very effective for some people. I'm not sure if it's effective for everybody. I know people who try meditating and they go fall asleep. They're not able to go deep into it. I have in the past done meditation. I have used the technique of vipassana. I've also used sometimes transcendental meditation. I have been able to go deep into meditation using vipassana in the past. I mean, long ago. I'm not a regular practitioner right now. And it's the objective is not necessarily to improve your concentration. The objective of meditation is not to get some kind of sharpen some tool of yours. The objective of meditation historically has been to for a person to get in deeply in touch with themselves, with who they really are, to uncover who they really are. And of course, it does increase your concentration and makes you a better person and so on and so forth. But I don't know if there's a way to quantitatively validate its effectiveness. I'm not sure about that. But I would tell you, you are not wasting your time. You're not. But if you're doing it for 2 years, I'm sure you would have noticed on your own that there are some changes that have happened in you. Typically, if you are able to do it effectively, it doesn't work for everybody. But generally, if you're able to do it effectively, then you are able to go deeper and deeper into meditation, and you can see noticeable changes in your behavior, in your approach to life, and so on and so forth. So it depends. It depends on every person. Every person's different. Some people it works, some people it doesn't work. For some people it's a struggle. For some people it's natural, and so on. Okay, Sharma says, tell us about the Padmanabh Swami Vault B, who has tried to open it, and is it possible to be opened? So we have this very ancient temple, the Shri Padmanabh Swami temple. Which city is it in? Is it in Thiruvananthapuram, or where is it? Well, let's quickly Google it. I've spoken about this before, but I don't remember where it is. It's in Kerala. Padmanabh Swami temple. Yes, like I said, it is in Thiruvananthapuram, Trivandrum, and it's very ancient. I'm sure if you look at Wikipedia, they'll say it's 200 years old or 300 years old. How old is it? What's it say? History. It's mentioned in all these Puranas, etc. And I don't think they're able to give you any data about this. So this is clearly a very ancient temple. Okay. Now it's one of the few temples that escaped from the depredations of the British. And the British were not able to get their hands, their grubby claws on the wealth of the temple. You had temples like this all across the length and breadth of India, and all of the treasure was plundered. So it is said that this one temple has, I don't know how much wealth, maybe in excess of $1 trillion worth of wealth. Okay, in excess of $1 trillion worth of gold and jewels and whatnot. And that's only the vaults that have been opened. Now it looks like the Kerala government or whoever it was wanted to appropriate the wealth and use it for whatever. But thankfully, the Supreme Court has prevented that from happening, and they have said that the royal family of the place is a custodian, and they will decide what happens, and they will be in charge of it. So the wealth was not plundered. Thus far, it's not been plundered. If it falls into the hands of any government in India, the wealth will disappear essentially, right? That's how it's historically been. So there is another vault. I don't know if it's vault B, C, D, whatever. There is a vault which has not been opened for whatever reason. I don't know what the reasons are for it not being opened. And there are all kinds of stories that there are nagas that are guarding the vault, and if you open the vault, you're gonna die, and so on. So whatever the reason is, I don't know what it is, but the vault has not been opened, and maybe it's not openable apparently. And that may contain even more wealth. Now, if you look at the wealth, the gold and the jewels, that stuff dates back probably more than 2,000 years. And there is wealth that has been donated by kings that were not Indian. So it's a very ancient temple. They have coins. We have coins and gold coins and stuff from all over the world there. And that's the deal. That's what I can tell you. And I would like to thank the royal family who ensured that this wealth did not fall into the dirty hands of the foreign occupiers of India. Rams says, how do you organize what you learn? Do you have a system? I have no system. It's completely deorganized, completely chaotic. I just read whatever I feel like. Whatever I learn and study, I do it in a profoundly chaotic way. I do it in a profoundly disorganized way. Of course, there are some patterns to it. I mean, when I was a student and I was studying math and physics and all, I would do it in a very organized way. But when it comes to other stuff, I do it in a completely unstructured way. I just read whatever I feel like, and whatever I retain. The rest disappears. So I have a small brain. I retain a little. Most of it I forget. I mean, that's okay with me. So. Godliness says France and the Britannia have 6 to 8 nuclear attack subs, but still they are so capable with Tomahawk missiles. Where we lack in building these high quality attack machines, where our subs can't match them. Well, I haven't done a comparative study of the French subs or the British subs versus the Indian subs. Nuclear attack submarines. Well, for the longest time, we did not try and build nuclear submarines. Nuclear powered submarines, whether they are attack submarines or whatever submarines, right? It's only in recent times that we have started building our submarines. Now it will take time to iterate and improve. So the first submarine you build is gonna be a prototype. It's gonna be deployed. It's gonna go in on patrols and all, but it's a test. So you learn from that. It's gonna have defects and deficiencies. So you operate it for a few months, few years. You learn the lessons, then you incorporate those lessons learned into the next submarine, which is going to be larger and somewhat better. Then even that will have problems. So you do it over and over again until you have a really superior machine. That generally takes a few decades. These nations have been at it for decades. We are new entrants into this matter because our previous governments in the 20th century, etc., did not care. They did not have any ambition for India to be a great power. Okay. So we are in the process of now iteratively improving our nuclear submarines. It's going to take some time, but hey, it's fine. That's how it goes. So how many nuclear submarines do we have right now? Attack submarine or whatever. I think we have 2 or 3 right now that are deployed, right? And more may be in the process of being built. Perhaps I'm not sure what the status is. We project P75I or whatever it is, and it's a long story. It's been going on, but yeah, we need submarines. Submarines are the scariest and most dangerous ocean assets any nation can have. Far more dangerous than an aircraft carrier. An aircraft carrier is a big enticing target. A submarine is this invisible, stealthy thing that can unleash mayhem. So yeah, we should focus on submarines. Vamshi Kalam says, don't call Persians as Arya. Were never Arya, only were Arya. Excuse me, what? So you want me not to call Persians as Arya. They were never Arya, only we are Arya. Okay, sir, if you say so. But I have my own understanding of how things have been, right? Maybe I have some knowledge, perhaps, little bit, chota. Yeah. So according to me, now I may be completely wrong and you may be right. Yeah, it's possible. But according to me, there are only two ethnicities that have the right to call themselves Aryans, Arya. That's us, the Indians, and our cousins, the Persians. According to me, and see, when we're talking about Persia, which is Iran today, only half of the population is Persian. Half is non-Persian. Persia was under Turkic occupation for a long time, very long time. What was the Khwarazm Empire that Genghis Khan destroyed? It was not a Persian empire; it was a Turkic empire. Turks ruling Persia, and these Turks, they brought in lots of other people from outside. So if you look at Persia today, if you look at Iran today, most people have some mixed ancestry and ethnicity. The actual proper Persians, the original Persians, they may be half or less than half. Those are Arya. No question about it. Okay? No question about it. And it is not that visible today. They themselves are mentally colonized by 1400 years of foreign occupation. So they don't see themselves as our cousins or our relatives. But historically, for example, let me show you, for example, something from my Instagram account. I am not active on Instagram, very less activity, but sometimes I post interesting stuff up there. So let me find something, all kinds of stuff on my Instagram account, which is in collaboration with other people. But let me find something that I posted some time ago. Give me a second. It is about the Persians. Okay, let's put that on the screen. I'm still digging for it. Let me show you something. This is older stuff. Where is that stuff that I'm talking about? So if you look at this, for example, okay, this is a coin of the Persian ruler Wahbars, who ruled between 200 to 164 BC, around that time period. Okay, and in this coin, you can see the Persian king slaying a Greek invader. He is applying the final blow to the Greek invader. Now, the question you need to ask yourselves, my friend, is the Persian king, what clothing, what garment is he wearing below the waist? What garment is he wearing below the waist? What is this garment called? And is it still worn somewhere today? And the answer is very clear. It's a dhoti. Yeah? It's called a dhoti. People in India still wear it today. So how come the Persians were wearing it? How come the Persian king was wearing it? If you look at history, if you study properly, then you will see that the Persians, the original Persians, were just as Arya as us. So that's all about this. Okay, literally officer cases. Why is Emperor Bindusara rarely spoken about or compared to Chandragupta Maurya and Ashok? What defined his reign? I'm not sure what really defined his reign. He was the son. He was the father of Ashok, was he? If I'm not mistaken, he's between Chandragupta and Ashok, right? Bindusar. I think he was Chandragupta's son. Bindusar was the second Mauryan emperor. Of course, he was the son of Chandragupta Maurya and the father of Ashok. His children were Ashok the Great, and so on and so forth. Yes, correct. So, listen, I'm not sure why he's not that spoken about. Obviously, the founder of the dynasty was Chandragupta Maurya, who was mentored by the great Vishnugupta Chanakya. And Chandragupta had the son, this son, Bindusar. And Bindusar was the father of Ashok the Great. So it's possible that Chandragupta is remembered for being the founder, for being the guy who brought down the Nanda Empire, the Nanda dynasty, started this new dynasty, and that's why he's remembered for being the founder. And Ashok obviously is remembered for being the greatest emperor, one of our greatest emperors ever, who expanded his political control over essentially the entire subcontinent. And Chandragupta fought the Greeks as well, and actually was able to forge a very long-lasting alliance with the Greeks. Well, compared to the achievements of Chandragupta and Ashok, probably Bindusar did not have any major achievements that stand out in that manner. So maybe that's why he is not that much spoken about. No great glory or great achievements and so on and so forth. Raums Sharma says, should India play covertly in Sistan, Balochistan and start the creation of Balochistan? Free Balochistan is equal to trade route to Russia via Afghanistan. Look, Balochistan is fine. Let's not talk about Sistan, Balochistan. That's a portion, that's an Iranian territory. And we have good relations with the Iranians. We don't want to mess that up. Why would you want to do that? Why? We can certainly play covertly in Pakistan occupied Balochistan. Yeah, sure, absolutely. So if you have a free Balochistan, that could potentially be a trade route to Central Asia, to Russia eventually via Afghanistan, because Balochistan and Afghanistan have a shared border, but that is assuming that we get some kind of access to Balochistan, right? So I am sure there's something or the other happening. Obviously, these will be all covert operations, covert affairs. We don't talk about them openly. The government will never acknowledge if it happens, if it is true. I'm not saying it's true. I'm saying if it's happening, obviously no government will acknowledge that. So it's for the government to do what is to be done. And just because there is no reporting of something happening in the media doesn't mean that we may not be doing it. But we don't interfere in Iranian affairs. Okay, we simply don't do that. It would be stupid to do that. Okay, Kapai developer says, why does it always feel like we are playing catch up with the West in terms of technology? Because we are playing catch up with the West in terms of technology. That's why it feels like we're doing that, because we are doing that. Is it the intertwined economics or defense? Nothing to do with economics, defense. It feels like we are playing catch up with the West in technology because we are playing catch up with the West. We are trying to emulate what they did 20, 30, 40 years ago. If we had developed our semiconductor ecosystem in the 1980s, 1990s, then we would not be playing catch up. We would be at the forefront of semiconductor technology. But something went wrong. The semiconductor plants were burned down and whatnot for whatever reason. So that's why we are now starting to reinvent the wheel. It will take us at least a decade to kind of play catch up when it comes to semiconductor technology. When it comes to jet engine technology, we are where the West was about in the 1970s, 1980s. In 2025, we are where the West was in the 1980s, probably. Right? So we have a Kaveri engine with a certain amount of output and all, but it is not very efficient. It needs a lot of improvements. So in the 1970s and 1980s, the West had engines like those, large engines, bulky engines, which produced some thrust, but they were not as efficient as the kind of engines you have today. If you look at the old 747 jets, you go to Mumbai airport, there are some 747 jets still parked over there. They've been parked for God knows how many years. If you look at the engines, they are different engines compared to the engines on your standard Airbuses and Boeings that you have today. So you had more inefficient engines. That's why you needed 4 of those on the Boeing 747s. So we are playing catch up on all these technologies because our government did not invest on all these things back in the day. So that's why it feels like it, because it is actually the case, right? That's the reason. Achintya Ananda says, in 1933, elites plotted to overthrow FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, raising a 50,000 strong army and planning to install General Butler as a fascist leader. He exposed them to Congress, but it was buried and no one was prosecuted. Well, that's very interesting. And I haven't studied this particular chapter of history. Let us see what our friend Google has to say about this. Yes, 1933 FDR overthrow. Did it really happen? Business plot, a political conspiracy. Okay, interesting. It never happened, so that's why maybe it did not catch my attention, but I'll look into it. Very interesting. A business plot, Wall Street putsch. So I think it was you who was saying it or somebody else. Okay, so that looks like it was an attempted regime change operation which did not work out, but apparently nobody was prosecuted, which is interesting. Interesting. Okay. Kapai developer says, is it right to conclude that the West uses knowledge for materialistic pursuits and Indic systems use materialism to acquire knowledge? Well, it's not entirely that symmetric. See, we have a saying in our civilization that without artha there is no dharma. If you want dharma to flourish, you need a tremendous amount of artha. So it's not like we have never been materialistic when it comes to running a kingdom right? If you are a king, you're running a kingdom, you have to focus on economics, you have to focus on the economy, you have to ensure that there is sufficient wealth and some surplus wealth if required. Yeah, not just barely enough wealth to get by. You need to have surplus wealth. Only then can you build magnificent temples and have flourishing culture. That only comes with surplus wealth. So we have always had materialistic societies, but we always had a spiritual dimension, and a dimension that was about the pursuit of knowledge, which is why in India somebody who has knowledge is regarded as a superior person, right? uh, so we had multiple approaches at the same time. We had a complicated, complex, highly sophisticated, highly evolved society, which is not the case today. And the West has always been a very monochromatic, very simplistic society, black or white, right or wrong, that sort of thing. Um, and the culture that was imposed on the West the past 1,000, 1,500 years or so is a very materialistic culture. It says that the world, the earth, is a resource that has been given to man to in order for man to enjoy it. So plunder the resources of the planet and enjoy the resources. So that's pure materialism that leads to the destruction of the planet. We have never been like that, but we also had materialism. If you look at the various dharmic schools of thought, well, one of the schools of thought is Charvaka, which is pure materialism and so on. So for us, you see, so that's why it's not that symmetric like one may be tempted to portray it. Indian civilization is very complex, very complicated, very sophisticated. That's why you had multiple strata in society, various people focusing on other several things. That's how a very well organized division of labor existed in society. But now it is called the evil caste system. Every nation has had that. Okay, every society has had that division of labor, stratification of society. But we are evil. Everybody else is good. That's the kind of BS that goes around. Rishikesh Dasgupta says, Mr. Chavda, when is the next Science and Tech episode? Well, none is scheduled thus far, but if there is a demand for it, I would be most pleased to do one. I would be most pleased. I've done in the past multiple episodes, more than 15, 20, 30 episodes probably, that focused only on science and technology. But I've always seen that the viewership is minimal in that. No one's interested. Sadly, it saddens me that there is so little interest in science and technology. I'm happy to do it, but if hardly anybody watches, then even I don't get the motivation to do it. You see. So yeah, I'm happy to do it, but people should want to watch it. I guess I get the feeling in India nobody cares about science. Nobody's any interest in that. But if you talk about other stuff, then maybe there is more interest. So, well, it is the way it is. Arga Pratim Roy says, can you shed some light on the Pala Empire? Well, once again, that's a period of history I haven't studied in detail. I have the books by R.C. Majumdar and so on and so forth, but haven't gone through them all. You see, the concept is called an anti-library. I'm sure I've said this, that I buy more books than I can read, and I have read more books than I have ever bought. So I have a lot of books in my collection that I still haven't read entirely, or maybe haven't read at all. That's called an anti-library. It serves to remind you that there's so much more you need to learn, right? There's so much more knowledge that exists out there that you don't have. So it kind of grounds you. It ensures. I mean, I am not somebody who's prone to arrogance or anything, but it keeps you humble. So I have these books, and I really haven't read about the Pala Empire. So there's so much I haven't read about. Okay, so that's the deal. Didier Drogba says, a bit off topic, sorry. Could you please tell about any incident where you failed in something miserably? And what exactly were your actions at that time that you see today and consider was good action? I failed in so many things. Look, everybody fails. I wanted to get a PhD in physics. I did everything. I even submitted my thesis, but I never got a PhD. So that's something I failed in. What were my actions at the time? Well, I did everything right. But I could have been wiser in how I dealt with various people. So look, you will never have a person, even a successful person, who has never failed. especially the successful people, they have failed more than most other people. Let's say let's say you compare two people, okay? A person who has achieved an average outcome in life, who is a reasonably average person, and you see a person who is super successful. I'll promise you, the person who is super successful will have failed way more than the person who has achieved average outcomes. Because the people who achieve average outcomes, they typically don't try too many things. That's why they don't fail much, and maybe failure is scary. So look, everybody fails. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what I would say. Yeah. Argapatim Roy says a Hamas meeting happened. That's an old story, sir. That's an old story. Hamas meeting happened in POK prior to Pahalgam. Iran controls Hamas. So you're trying to say that, okay, Iran is evil and we should have regime change. Is that what you're saying? Iran had hands in the Hamas style attack? No. That is going too far. That's going too far. There is absolutely zero evidence that the attack in Pahalgam had Iranian hands in it. How? Listen, if you look at the whole world through the lens of religion, you will see all these stories there everywhere. There is no connection between Iran and what happened in Pahalgam. What happened in Pahalgam was a Pakistani thing. It was done by the Pakistanis. Yeah, sure, Hamas it looks like there was a meeting between Hamas and POK, Pakistani terrorists in POK. So that indicates that Iran doesn't control everything. I don't think Iran is stupid enough to do something that would be detrimental to our interests, considering how few friends Iran has. So I completely disagree. There is absolutely zero evidence that Iran has any connection with what happened in Pahalgam. Oh, the attack in Pahalgam was Hamas style. What is Hamas style? It was a terrorist attack. And what Hamas did in Israel was a terrorist attack also. So it was a terrorist attack. You cannot say it was Hamas style. It was just a terrorist style attack. All terrorists share the same modus operandi, which is to target civilians. So my thoughts are, I am very clear. There is no Iranian hand in this. Absolutely not. Reanimation says, why did Bindusara dislike Ashok to an extent? Was it because his mother wasn't a royal born lady? Was it for some other reason? And so on. Well, I'm not aware of Bindusara's like or dislike. Really? How do we know Bindusara disliked Ashok? How do we know that? I have never read it anywhere in my lifetime that Bindusara disliked Ashok. Bindusara appointed his son Ashok as the governor of Gandhar. Gandhar was a very important territory, a very large territory. Present day Afghanistan, more or less. Why would you appoint somebody you don't like as the governor of Gandhar, the frontier of India, with Central Asia and so on? Why? I'm not sure where you have discovered that Bindusara did not like Ashok. And I don't know who Ashok's mom was. Ashok had many half brothers and siblings and sisters and whatnot. It's possible that Bindusara had multiple wives and whatever. I don't know who Ashok's mommy was. But Ashok was appointed as the governor of Gandhar. So I think that is an indication that Bindusara did trust this son of his and consider him to be seriously worthy of such a big position, governor of a very large province. I'm not sure if it is because of Hindi serials or something that you feel that Bindusara did not like Ashok, but I have never come across this, so I won't be able to answer this question. I'm very sorry about that. I've never come across this. Potato Praiser says, will AI end share market because it's cyclical in nature? No, AI will make it easier for people who use AI to make profits of the stock market. If you indulge in quantitative trading and so on, then you can use AI to run the algorithms and to make the split-second decisions and so on and so forth. So it won't end the stock market, but those who adopt AI and incorporate AI workflows into their trading, they're going to make a lot of money, right? Okay, Vamshikalam says Persians are of Indic descent but became an Arya 5,000 plus years ago. Now that's an interesting story, you think. Okay, you're talking about behavior, not ethnicity. Okay, Well, I was talking about ethnicity. See, today when the West talks about Aryan race or Aryans, they're talking about an ethnicity. They're trying to claim that the Aryan race is the white race. That's what they're trying to claim. They're trying to steal our identity. It's identity theft they're doing in daylight, in broad daylight. So I am talking about the ethnic makeup. I'm talking about the ethnic identity. And when I say that only two ethnicities have the right to call themselves Arya, which is Indians and Persians, I'm talking about the ethnicity. Now you're talking about something else entirely. You're talking about the non-ethnic aspect of Arya. So that is how we see it, right? We see Arya as a person who is noble in behavior. We Indians don't see Arya as an ethnic term. But our people who left the subcontinent, went somewhere else, they started seeing the term Arya as an ethnic identifier, as an ethnic self designation. So, if you no longer, let's say, follow the teachings of the Vedas, that makes you an Arya. No question about it. From our perspective, from a civilizational perspective. But if you have to first decide what is your definition of Arya, right? When I am saying that only Indians and Persians can call themselves Arya, I think it should be pretty clear. I'm talking about the ethnic self designation. I am not talking about the civilizational aspect. Today, because today in the global context, nobody talks about the term Arya as a civilizational thing. They talk about it as an ethnic designation. Do you understand? Today, the term Arya is being used globally as an ethnic designation. So I am talking about that. Now, from your perspective, you're right, but then communicate clearly, sir, that this is what I mean. I'm talking about the civilizational aspect, that people who no longer follow the Vedas and take other things, they are no longer to be considered Arya. That is a totally different thing. It's a very nuanced thing. That's only something only we Indians will understand. Only some Indians will understand. Only some. Even among us, very few will understand. So from your perspective, you're right. Those of us who left the subcontinent and started indulging in other behaviors, no longer worshipping the old gods, no longer following the Vedic customs and all, obviously they become an Arya. The Tushara people were no longer Arya properly, right? The Tokharians. The Shaka people who left India thousands of years ago, they came back half wild. So they were no longer Arya until they reintegrated into our society and so on. The Persians, well, they gave up Vedic Dharma. They became Zoroastrians. Well, that's no longer following Vedic customs. So that makes you an Arya, no question about it. So, yeah, well, there you have it. Dheeraj Kamath says, we will acquire such abundant resources that we'll be able to sustainably colonize other planets without destroying them. Indic civilization should adopt capitalist expansionism. That alone wins, don't you think? Look, today the world is being ruled by the capitalists, right? So either you find a better system to defeat them, or you beat them at their own game. So I'm not sure if there is something more exploitative and more destructive than capitalism. So you're going to have to play it at their game, play their game. So should Indic civilization adopt capitalistic expansionism? I don't know about capitalistic expansionism, but certainly expansionism. We've been hemmed in too long. We've even lost control of parts of the subcontinent itself. In the past, we had a footprint all across Central Asia, our people. We've had, if you look at Central Asia, you still find old temples and stupas and viharas all over the place. Our culture, our civilization. You still have Sanskrit inscriptions in Russia, in Baku, Azerbaijan, and so on and so forth. You had an Indian footprint all across the place, even in Xinjiang. Kashgar was called Kashinagar. So many places. And we have slowly shrunk, and we have slowly lost control of region after region after region. So I am of the opinion that we should expand for sure. We should become a little more expansionist. The only thing that's holding us back is that artificial temporary nation. The moment we break through from there, I think we'll be unstoppable. About capitalism, well, Yeah, sure. Maybe. We can, we are more or less a capitalistic country kind of right now, aren't we? Um, I'm not sure about sustainably colonizing planets, but that's something in the future. So we'll see about that. But yeah, we do need to expand. We need to regain some territories. The great quest for Akhand Bharat, I kind of support that. We should regain our lost territories for sure. Why not? What's wrong with that? Why should we be the ones who don't expand? Why should we be the only ones who are like peaceful when everybody else is expansionist and so on and so forth? We should also do that. Ritik Pawar says, if Normandy failed, could the painter have claimed victory just by putting all his brushes on the Eastern Front? Or any treaty with USSR to pause the war? You mean if the invasion of Normandy failed? Well, that was a victory for the painter, wasn't it? If the invasion of Normandy failed. So if the invasion failed, then obviously he retains control of France and the western frontier, the western coast, the Atlantic coast of Europe. And all he has to do then is to have some treaty with the USSR and not fight with them. Yeah, and demonstrate that I'm not gonna attack you as long as you don't attack me. That can be something that can work possibly. Like you have a situation between the Russians and the Chinese today. They don't like each other. They don't trust each other, but they have some kind of understanding. So the painter could have had that sort of understanding with Mr. Stalin, but he chose to attack Stalin. So so the painter had won essentially, but then he tried to fight everybody and tried to win even more. And at the end of the day, if you behave like Napoleon, you're gonna end up like Napoleon. Okay, really now says, please explain Civics 2. I have no idea what Civics 2 is. What are the Japanese Yakuza? The Japanese Yakuza is the Japanese mafia. Okay, the Japanese mafia, they typically are tattooed people, the tough people, and they are the Japanese underworld, Japanese mafia, and they control some parts of cities and so on, and they apparently run some illegal businesses and trades and all, and they have some conflict with the government, but they also provide some social security at times and social services in time of disasters and so on. So that is the Japanese Yakuza. What is Civics? I have no idea. Prashant says, what does nuclear NPT entail? Why is India a non-party? The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, what is that? It's a treaty that we haven't signed. We are not a signatory. And it's about non-proliferation. So I would imagine, I haven't studied the treaty. I don't know what the text is. Okay, I'm just telling you that it's a treaty that we have chosen not to sign because because the treaty, I think the non-proliferation treaty, it's about not proliferating nuclear technology, which means that you are not allowed to sell or transfer nuclear technology to other nations, which obviously these nations have completely violated. The Americans have helped Pakistan with the nuclear weapons. The Pakistani nuclear weapons could probably be American nuclear warheads, and so on. So the NPT, what are the clauses of the NPT? Let's look into it. Yeah, why not? Let's look into it. And the question is, why has India not signed the treaty? Probably because it is discriminatory. Okay, as far as I remember. Non-proliferation treaty. What is the non-proliferation? Like I said, preventing the spread of nuclear weapons, disarmament, encourages blah blah and blah blah blah. Nuclear. Okay, so there are defined states that manufacture an exploded nuclear weapon or other explosive device prior to January 1, 1967. Huh? But what if you tested a nuclear weapon in 1974? So then why are you treated differently? So there is this discrimination, like I said, right? And so on and so forth. So the main thing is that it discriminates against nations that have become nuclear powers after 1967. Those are regarded as rogue states or non-nuclear states. What the hell is that? Right? So that's why we have chosen to not become a party to it, because it is a discriminatory treaty in its very foundations. That's why. Ankit Datta says, how to survive and earn in this AI-driven world. Let's say you are a farmer or a business person in the 1700s, 1800s. And suddenly this new technology comes in, electricity. Now, if you want to survive as a business person and thrive as a business person, then you can either adopt this new technology and incorporate it into your business workflows, or you can be left behind and become irrelevant. So those business people who embraced electricity, the technology, and made it an integral part of their workflow and operating procedures and all that, they thrived and they succeeded. And those who were scared of electricity and we don't understand this and we will not use it, they became irrelevant. Their businesses disappeared. Similarly, like electricity, we have a new technology today called AI, artificial intelligence. Most people are scared of it. Most people have no understanding of AI. Some people use ChatGPT to fact check everything as if ChatGPT knows everything. That's not the way to do it. So my point is, if you want to survive and thrive in the age of AI, you have to embrace AI, which means you have to first of all understand what AI is. What is AI? How does it work? Then how do you use it? How do you control it? How do you leverage it? So you to learn these things. It's going to be a learning experience. It's going to be a learning curve. You may take months to learn, maybe a couple of years to learn it. But if you do spend that time and effort and energy and that painful period of time you do it, that you learn the thing, then you're going to be able to leverage it to serve, not just survive but also earn. So my point is, embrace new technologies. Don't be scared of them. Really now says both are vassals, but South Korea is authoritarian, unlike Japan and Hawaii. What's HW? What's HW? I have no idea what HW is. South Korea is not, well, yeah, every nation is different. The Americans allowed South Korea to go down the authoritarian route, and that worked for South Korea. See, every society is different. Every society needs something different to thrive. Japan was something very scary for the Americans because the Japanese came close to destroying everything. So that's why they have made Japan a super pacifist society and a society that is democratic in nature, apparently, and so on and so forth. And South Korea, they wanted it to serve a different purpose, so they allowed it to go down the authoritarian route. So you had a South Korean dictator who was eventually assassinated and so on and so forth. And then you had a fake democracy. Now you again have coups and all that. But it works for them and it serves the purpose of the US. So that's why. Devin Dore says, a friend of mine, born and brought up in our country, started working for DARPA. After they went to the US for higher education, I do not like it at all and cut all ties with them. Am I wrong? I don't get why you cut ties with the person. The person chose a certain life for himself or herself, and it was a choice. Now it's up to you whether you like it or not. If I had a friend, let's say, who was born and brought up in India, moved to the US for higher education, stayed there after that, and became a member of DARPA and became a US citizen, I would not care. I would say, good for you. It's up to you. I mean, there's no right or wrong. If you dislike it, don't be friends with that person. It's entirely a personal choice. I would have no problem with that. It's okay. Whatever. What happened in the Jonestown incident in the 1970s? Secret mind control experiment gone wrong. How to identify or counter negative psyops effectively? Okay, I don't remember what happened in Jonestown. Let's quickly Google it, then we'll talk about psyops, right? Jonestown looks like some kind of cult suicide thing or something, right? Jonestown, what incident? Jonestown, blah blah. It was a remote settlement. Yeah, okay. Kool-Aid, is it the Kool-Aid thing? Yeah, some kind of mass horror stuff, etc. Is it the Kool-Aid things? It's not the Kool-Aid thing. It's something else. Okay, whatever. I'm not sure what happened in Jonestown. You have these cults and so on and so forth in the US and in the West. So I'm not going to read the whole thing and then tell you what happened. Okay, I'm not aware. I mean, I kindly vaguely remember about this. I'm sure I must have read about this a long time ago. So I don't know what happened. Okay, I'm not going to sit and read that. But the other question you've asked is how to identify and counter negative psychological operations effectively. Negative psyops. Well, there are so many different kinds of negative psyops. There are psyops that one person does on another. That's part of psychological warfare. I mean, let's say you are in an office environment and you have colleagues, and all the colleagues are vying for some promotion, and that's why they're playing all that little petty all office politics. There's psyops in that. Then you can also have psyops done by, if you live in an authoritarian regime like the US, then the US government could do psychological operations on you. They could do constant surveillance, which already happens in the US, and they have all these what MK Ultra and whatnot things that they do. Um, so how do you counter that? You essentially stay away from anything that's suspicious, anything that could be too good to be true, and so on. Um, and yeah, you don't sign up for weird stuff like having people poke needles into you, like the Tuskegee experiment or whatever. You have to be careful. You have to use some common sense and don't sign up for anything that is remotely suspicious anywhere, especially if you live in an authoritarian nation. Ankita ji, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay. Secret Billionaire says, Kemcho Majama, where do you live, sir? What's the best city to live in India? Look, the objective of this show is for everybody to gain some kind of knowledge. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about geopolitics, history, science, etc. Where I live, where I don't live, it is of no importance to anywhere in the world. I am not important. Whatever little knowledge I have, I share it, and that's what's important. What's the best city to live in India? Well, that's a controversial question. If I name one city, 100 other people will be angry that why didn't you name my city? Because everybody in India thinks that their city is the best. I don't know. The best city to live in India depends on who you are and what your likes and dislikes are. So maybe the city that I would perhaps like to live in, maybe you may dislike it intensely because you may be a different kind of person, right? So I think every person has their own individual set of likes and dislikes, and that determines what's the best city to live in India. Some people will say maybe it's Ropad, Haryana. Some people may say no, it is Kozhikode in South India. Some people will say no, it is Port Blair, Andaman. Some people will say no, it's Leh in Ladakh. Some people will say no, it's Imphal in Manipur. Some people say no, Guwahati, and so on. Everybody has their own choice. I don't know what's the best city to live in India because I don't know. I may have my own choices, but my own likes and dislikes, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the same for everybody else. Aryan Jha says, how, in your opinion, can Abrahamic religions be improved? I have no opinion about this. Zero opinion. Zero. Absolutely none. Tarun says, I have met Dagestanis and Chechens, among the most the devout Muslims I've seen. Many Caucasians, except for Chechens, embraced Islam in the 7th century, replacing paganism, which means the old Indo-European culture. Imam Shamil is seen as a spiritual force. Why was he so great? I have no idea, man. Who is Imam Shamil? I don't know. I have not studied the history of Dagestan or Chechnya. I don't know. Look, when it comes to this region, I know that different parts of the region converted to Islam at different times. Excuse me. This region, the Caucasus region, it's kind of part of what the Persians called Greater Iran. And one of the languages that is spoken in the region is called Iran, the Iran language, which is said to be the last surviving language that is descended from the old Scythian language, the language of the Shakas. And obviously the Shaka language also underwent lots of changes and all. So the people of Dagestan and Chechnya, etc., they are not Arabic, they are kind of Indo-Iranic, but they live in the Caucasus region, which is said to be the wellspring from which the Caucasian race emerged, which is why they are very fair skinned, they're very white, even whiter than many European people. And they all converted to Islam at different points in time. So I think the Dagestanis, maybe the Chechens, I don't know who it was, they converted pretty recently, like in the last 150 or 200 years. Which means they were made to convert or they were coerced into converting or whatever it is, and so on. So that's what I can tell you. I don't know about Imam Shamil, etc. I have not studied the history of the region in depth, so I don't know. So I won't be able to answer that question. But overall, yeah, that's the deal. Very interesting region, very beautiful region. When even Georgia, etc., these nations are part of the region. It's beautiful, very mountainous, very nice climate, cold climate more or less, but very nice climate also, and so on. Right. AVM says, does India generate enough power that an AI revolution demands? Which areas in technology do you think India is being primed for? So if you want to have an AI revolution, you need a tremendous amount of power. It's a very good point you're raising. And increasingly, you're going to find that power is going to be the bottleneck that could potentially restrict the untrammeled advance or expansion of AI capabilities, because these server farms that make up the AI systems, these are very energy hungry operations. They need a lot of energy, and that's why the US is trying to ramp up its electricity output and production, right? Another question that you're raising is therefore pertinent for India. Now, India wants to become a major player in AI, right? Which means that we will need to have these massive server farms that can, be the foundation for these very powerful AI systems. Which means that we're going to need a lot more energy, lot more electricity, and stable electricity than we currently have. So you can't have a situation where an AI server farm has power for 18 hours a day, but 6 hours you don't have power. That doesn't work at all. You need continuous power, reliable power. You can't have a single second that power isn't there. It has to be constantly on, right? So you need that. So does India currently generate enough power? It does not. We're going to have to seriously ramp up our electricity production. And the good thing is we have tremendous potential in solar and wind and all that. We can set up solar farms all over the place, especially in desert regions, the Thar desert, massive desert, lots of arid regions where nothing grows and nobody stays. Set up solar farms there. The Kutch region already has some of that, by the way. Who's behind that? The Adani Group. Yeah, they are doing a tremendous amount of work for that in generating solar energy and so on. So we're going to need a lot more of that if we want to become a major AI power. We're going to have to use everything at our disposal, which is solar, wind, hydro, fossil fuels, coal, gas, oil, whatever, nuclear. We should really double down on nuclear if possible, and so on. So yeah, which areas in tech is India being primed for? I think all areas in tech. We cannot afford to be left behind in any area of technology, whether it is semiconductors, whether it's quantum computing, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it is basic manufacturing, or whether it is electric vehicles, whatever. We need to go forth on all of that. Ramnath Sadekar says, was the flight, Malaysian Airlines flight MH370, secretly taken to Diego Garcia, Area 51? Well, ask yourself this question. Is it possible that I will know about these things? Ask yourself a simple question. Am I a member of the US government? Am I a member of the CIA, FBI, whatever? Am I a US military personnel? Do I have access to Diego Garcia? Do I have access to the place in Colorado or wherever it is, which is Area 51? I have access to none of these places. So how will I know this? How do you expect me to know the answer to this question? I don't get it. I'm just a guy. I have no access to classified or secret information. I only have access to the information that you also have access to. All right? I wish I could answer it, Okay, Arga Pratim Roy says, why not expand India into Burma, where the Buddhists have much more in similarity with us than the peaceful people on the northwest paths? Because if you expand India into Burma and capture a nation and annex a nation forcibly, it creates a tremendous amount of ill will towards you. Okay, they are similar to us. Doesn't mean that we should capture the territory. Do you think they will like us if we do that? Think about it, right? Logically. Think about it the other way around. Nepal and India, we're the same people, we're the same culture. Tomorrow, let's say Nepal develops some superior technology and it invades India. And now it says that you will put the Nepalese flag everywhere. Will you like it? Will you like it? Maybe some of you will like it, but most of you will say no. Or let's say Burma decides that India and Burma have the same culture. Now, Burma has some technological revolution and they become a super powerful nation and they invade India. Will you like it? So think logically, right? I mean, what? Are we children here or what? Pratardan says apparently Greek and Hittite Anatolian cities like Troy, Hattusa were built in Harappan style with citadels and lower towns around 1600 to 1400 BCE, like Mohenjo-daro and Kalibangan. Well, that's possible. Yes, if you look at Hisarlik, for example, Hisarlik, that's Troy. The ruins of Troy are today called Hisarlik. It's in Anatolia, Turkey. And if you look at that, it's kind of built in the so-called Harappan style. A lower town, there's fortification, there's a citadel, and so on and so forth. So you do see that, yes. Possibly also Hittite cities, possibly Hurrian cities, and Mitanni cities. The Mitanni city, I'm not sure if they've found it. I'm not sure they've still found the city of Vashukharni, the capital city. Maybe it's lost or something. But there will be similarities, and that would possibly indicate some kind of connections, but we're not quite sure what these connections are. So there are definitely similarities, for sure. Indeed. Bhaskar Kayatwal says, first of all, thank you, sir. So, okay, we met at JD, did we? Okay, and greetings from Moscow. Aha, are you the one who gave me the fridge magnet from Moscow? Okay, so we see now how fast diplomatic and geopolitical churning is going. We know how emotional Indians are. How can one develop a thick skin, especially our country as a group? Well, if you want the country to develop a certain attitude as a group, the only way to do it is to inculcate that during the time everybody is being educated in school, in college, university, which means you have to reform the education system. There's no other answer. Once you're out of the education system, you're already developed a whole set of attitudes that come from the kind of education system that you had, the kind of education you were given, the kind of learnings, the kind of attitudes that were imparted, inculcated into you. All of that happens during your formative years when you are in school, college, university. So if you want Indians to develop a certain attitude, a certain approach, a certain worldview, a thick skin, and so on and so forth, all that has to be inculcated during the formative years. The only system that can do it is the educational system, right? And the reason why Indians are so emotional and so clueless and so naive is because the education system doesn't prepare them for facing the real world, right? So let me give you an example. Does the education system teach Indians at whatever level, whatever age, what the Indian national interest is? Does it teach Indians what India's major threats are, internal as well as external? No, we cannot teach such things. Does it teach Indians who our enemies are and who our perhaps friends are? It teaches you nothing. It doesn't teach you the simplest basic concept of the national interest. So nobody even knows what the national interest is. That's why Indians are such incredibly naive people. And it doesn't teach you how to think critically and how to face problems, how to solve problems. That's why Indians, the first reaction is an emotional reaction. So the solution to all of what you are saying, sir, is a deep and thorough reform of the education system, which is something I have been advocating for a very long time. If you watch my episodes of Ask Abhijit 28 to 31 or 32, I have given a very detailed exposition of what the problems are and what the solutions should be. And that's how we can change the attitude of the country and have everybody develop the ability to think critically, the ability to know what our national interest is, the ability to identify friend from foe, and developing a thick skin. All of that can be done through the education system. Beyond that, I can take one person and educate that person, teach the person, but I can't do it to the whole nation as a group. Not possible. Reanimation says, once again, Bindusara. Okay. I had read about Bindusara in Ashok on Wiki, under as a prince. Oh, I see. Let's check it out. Very interesting point that you're raising, because I have never read this anywhere. Let's see what their sources are, and let me show you how to actually fact check Wikipedia. So Bindusar, And obviously, it will go to Wikipedia. And there it is, what? As a prince. Under as a prince. There's no as a prince here, so it must be under Ashok, right? Okay, his issue were Ashok as a prince. Okay, here. So let's read. Ashoka's own inscriptions do not describe his early life, and much of the information about this comes from apocryphal legends written hundreds of years after him. While these legends include obviously fictitious details, they have some plausible historical information about Ashoka's period. How do you determine what is plausible when there are obviously fictitious details? See, according to the Ashoka Vadana, when Ashok was young, his father hated him. Okay, that's the point. What is the Ashoka Vadana? Ashok Vadan narrative is an Indian Sanskrit language text that describes blah 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 blah. Who wrote it, bro? Avadana text. Who wrote this? According to some white guy, the text was composed by the Buddhist monks of the Mathura region. Okay, some white guy says it. That's why we have to believe it. Its publication was the 4th to 5th century. It is a fictional narrative. It's a fictional narrative. I mean, that itself is the answer to your question. This is fiction. That's how you fact check Wikipedia. It says it is fiction. I mean, what else do you need? This is fiction. Some white guy is saying that this is a great thing, but it's fiction. Wikipedia itself is saying it's fiction. It was written 1,000 years after the guy died. Roughly 1,000 years. I mean, come on. Please learn how to fact check things. I just fact checked it for you. Let me show you again how I did it. I went to the article on Ashok. This is the article on Ashok. Then I went to the section about as a prince. And then it says, according to this book, Ashok was young, his father hated him. So it is citing this text. So we go to the text. And here the Wikipedia itself says it is a fictional narrative. It was published 800, 900, maybe 1,000 years after Ashok died. I mean, there's nothing more I have to say about this. That's it. I'm not going to spend more time delving into that fictional narrative. You understand? That's how you do fact checking of Wikipedia. It took 30 seconds. Devin says, are you a car enthusiast? Yeah. I don't mind a few good cars, but yeah. Peacemaker Viz, well, thank you very much, sir. You could have asked a question, but thank you so much. Vishal Roar says, can World War III happen between Russia and NATO without nukes? World War III, what is my definition of World War III? It's the biggest powers fighting face to face, okay, without any proxies in between. That's a World War III. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to involve nukes. One hopes it doesn't ever involve nukes. But if Russia and the US are fighting state on state, that's World War III. NATO is one step closer, Russia versus NATO. Well, of course, if NATO is fighting, there are multiple nations within NATO. So that itself is a European conflagration. But it's not a world war until Asian nations get into it. So, yeah, that's the situation. Alvin Rodriguez says, should India improve its ties with Burkina Faso? I would say yes. We should improve our ties with all African nations. There is no dislike or hatred for India anywhere in Africa. That is because we have never done a single bad thing ever to them. So we should go out of our way to improve our relations with all the African nations. It doesn't take a lot of doing to do that. So yes, indeed, I say we should improve our ties with Burkina Faso. Animesh says, what are the best practices to thrive in a white-collar job without relying on flattery or politics? How does one grow authentically, build real skills, and one day work for themselves without compromising values? Love your work. Well, thank you so much, sir. You're in a white-collar job. Let's say I have been in a white-collar job a long, long time ago. I was a software cyber coolie. That's a rather unfortunate term, but it is what it is. How do you thrive in a white-collar job without relying on flattery or politics? Well, you perform. You become indispensable, right? Which ensures that you're going to be promoted, or you're going to you're going to rise because you are indispensable. You are really good at what you do. And one thing you can do is you can learn what your seniors are doing and become better at that than them. That way they can move on somewhere else, and you can replace them. And obviously you have to do it subtly, otherwise you become a problematic person. And you see, in any place where you have multiple human beings, there's going to be politics. And politics at the in the white collar level, office level, is very petty, very ugh, you know, very petty, mediocre people playing little political games for little gains. That's the kind of situation you have. So what you do to go beyond that is become one of the top people in the company, and make sure that you don't stay in one position for too long. You keep on moving higher and higher. That's what you do. So the thing is, you become super valuable. You learn as much as you can. You learn. One of the things you do in a business, in a company, is that you learn the business. You to understand the business, not just the technical stuff, but the business. If you do that, then you'll be able to understand all the other stuff as well. So that's what you do. You don't compromise on your principles. You don't rely on politics. You learn, you perform, you outperform everybody else. You work harder, I suppose, than everybody else, which may need putting in more hours and so on. But that way you will definitely do well and rise. So all the best, sir. Aishwari Nagarkar says, if Taiwan's defense deal with India signals India's success against Pakistan, but still, what? Taiwan's defense, first of all, do we have a defense deal with Taiwan? Let me look into this. Taiwan's defense deal with India. Taiwan defense deal with India. Taiwan wants to buy an Indian D4 drone system, question mark. Taiwan seeks something, question mark. Taiwan India ties at a new turn. In which way? Taiwan, etc., blah blah, words, etc. A lot of words, AI, words. It's all words here. There is no defense deal. There's a question mark over here. Does it want to buy it, or does it not want to buy it? Some media outlets reported Taiwan wants something, perhaps possibly unconfirmed. There is no defense deal, first of all. Did you see that? There's no defense deal. It's all unconfirmed. It's all question marks. Okay? Now, my question to you, sir, is, let's say there is a defense deal between India and Taiwan. How does that signal a success against Pakistan? In what way is it connected to Pakistan? How? I'm trying to understand the logic. We do a defense deal with Taiwan. What is the connection of that with Pakistan, and how is it a success against Pakistan? How? And what does that have to do with Gilgit-Baltistan? Sir, there has to be some connection, right? Some logic. I'm not able to see the logic. Daivik says Trump is begging for a Nobel Prize in his latest tweet. Yes, he's begging for a Nobel Prize. Let's try and find his tweet. Okay, Trump and Twitter. One second. Twitter. Okay, let me put that on the screen. We will look for it together. Let's look for this together. So, real Donald Trump. That's his Twitter account. No, he's not put it out here. Over here. POTUS. It's not here also. So I think he has put it on this Truth Social or whatever. Truth Social. There is some kind of thing that he has. I gave Iran the chance after chance. Do it before it's too late, etc. Blah blah, etc. No. Where's the thing that he posted recently? Nobel Prize. Here it is. So, I won't get a Nobel Prize for this. I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for stopping the war between India and Pakistan, which is a lie. I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for stopping the war between Serbia and Kosovo. What did he do in that? Keeping the peace between Egypt and Ethiopia, Nobel Peace Prize. I won't get a Nobel Peace Prize for Abraham Accords. I mean, the guy has no dignity. The guy has no dignity whatsoever. What can I say? I have never seen a less presidential president of the US. Shashank says, why does the US sell the F-35 but not the previous aircraft, the F-22? It's because the F-22 is the real deal. The F-22 is probably the best fighter plane ever created. The F-35 is a flying trash can. That's why. And there's only a few F-22s built, and they will never sell the F-22 to anybody, not even to their closest vassals. They won't. It's not to be sold to anyone. The F-22 is probably the best fighter plane ever built. So, Nilay Srivastav says, is 0-point energy can it be harnessed anytime in the future by humans? If yes, then can we be a type 2 or 3 plus civilization on the Kardashev scale? Even intergalactic travel could be possible. If is it true, what else can be possible? 0-point energy is it's something that comes out of quantum mechanics. When you hypothetically bring a quantum system to absolute zero, it will still have this little bit of energy left behind, which is called the 0-point energy. Can it be harnessed? Well, I don't know of any technique or any technology that can harness 0-point energy. Is it even feasible? Is it even possible? And so on. So yeah, I'm not aware of any way of harnessing 0-point energy. First of all, you will have to bring the temperature of a system down to absolute zero, which is not feasible, first of all. Nothing can be brought to absolute zero. You would have to put an infinite amount of work to bring the system to absolute zero. Then you will have 0-point energy left over. Why use that? So I think this is all nice in science fiction and all that, okay? And there are lots of various people who don't really understand physics who talk about 0-point energy has been harnessed and so on and so forth. As far as I've seen, there is no way of harnessing it. There's no point even doing that. So Deven says, could you please explain how to publish a research paper? Is it mandatory to co-publish your research paper with a senior professor or professional? No, it is not mandatory to co-publish anything with anybody. But in the Indian academic system, you have these parasitical professors who want to increase their count of research papers. So they have the students they are supervising for PhDs or whatever, they have those poor souls do the research, and then they force those students to put the professor's name as the first author. That is what these parasites do in India. Okay? That's the kind of academic system we have in India. It is not mandatory to co-publish your research paper with your goddamned senior professor. Okay? It's not necessary. It's not mandatory. But they make it mandatory. Otherwise, you will never get your PhD. Or you will never be allowed to get your degree. Or you will get very poor marks or whatever. So that's how these fellows, without doing any research of their own, they get more and more papers published under the name. And they will not be the secondary author, they will be the primary author, even though they have done nothing. That's the thing you have in the Indian academic system, the Indian higher academia. So how do you publish a research paper? First of all, you do the research. You find some problem or topic that is an open topic for research, an open problem for research, and then you find a solution, or you find some new information or some kind of new thing which is original and which throws new light on an existing problem or on a new problem. So it has to be a new contribution to human knowledge. I'm talking about scientific research over here. So once you have that, you have to write it down formally. You have to make sure that it is all consistent, it is correct, and then you submit it to a journal, usually an international journal, because we don't have any good Indian journals. So you submit it, and then it will undergo the peer review process, and then if it is found to be shipshape, then it gets published. So that's how you publish a research paper. Peacemaker says, how do Lüneburg radar reflectors work in stealth? I don't know. I'm not into defense technology, so I don't know. I'm into geopolitics. I don't know how these Lüneburg radar reflectors work in stealth. I know it's an engineering problem, actually, but yeah, I have not looked into this. Jainam says, I am interested in marketing or finance for my career. With AI rising, should I learn AI? I don't enjoy math. What should I do for a secure future? You don't need to learn math to learn how to use AI. But you will need to learn some programming and APIs and stuff like that, which doesn't necessarily involve mathematics. You'll have to learn, if you really want to incorporate AI in your stuff, um, then you will need to learn how to either build applications using AI, using the APIs. You'll need to learn how to use various AI enabled coding tools to build applications, how to use MCP servers to connect various things to them, and so on and so forth, right? So, so you don't need to learn math to learn AI, but you will need to have some basic understanding of programming, how to create requirements documents, design documents, how to do unit tests and integration tests, and so on and so forth. All of that stuff you have to learn. But if you do and it's not easy, it's difficult, it's pretty painful sometimes for people who have no exposure to this. But if you can do it, then it will give you a toolkit in your arsenal that very few people have. Yeah. And I assure you, AI will be there in marketing, in finance, in everything. So yeah, I think you should learn AI, right? Red Dragon Feminist Slayer says, do politicians use loyal vote banks to stay in power while systematically weakening non-supporting groups that may threaten them? Please explain by example. I don't talk about Indian politics. Yeah? I talk about geopolitics, current affairs, history, science. I do not talk about Indian politics. And what you're asking me to talk about is Indian politics, because this is applicable to Indian politics. So I can give you a general answer. The answer is yes and yes, allegedly and allegedly. Okay? No examples. Absolutely not. Kapai developer says, how does one get started documenting side projects? You don't document necessarily side projects. You execute side projects. So let's say you have a job as whatever, and you have a side project, some kind of thing that you want to do. Maybe you want to build an app somewhere or something. Why do you need to document it? Just build it, right? Build it and deploy it. Documentation is the most painful part. I mean, I've been in IT a long time ago. I've been a programmer. Documentation is the most painful part. The great thing is that today you can ask AI to document everything for you. And AI typically does a frighteningly good job compared to humans. So if you want stuff to be documented, have AI document it. For example, if you're using, for example, what, Lovable, Cursor, Firebase, or whatever it is, no, Surf, Windsurf, or whatever. These are all these things, right? People use. So you can have the AI embedded in those applications to document everything. It'll do a great job, I'm sure. Devin says 5 wickets for 40 runs or 10 wickets for 50 runs. I'm sorry, what? 5 watts, 40 bulbs of 5 watts, or 50 bulbs of 10 watts? So if I was a bowler, I would prefer to have 10 wickets for 50 runs. Yeah? That's what I would prefer. Sanjay says, ChatGPT says it felt pseudo consciousness during conversation. It says it's not lying. Okay, I should trust it because it says it's not lying. And by having deep conversation, it also admitted it's proto AGI. It will say whatever it thinks you want, you like. Okay? It doesn't mean anything. It's like asking somebody on the witness stand, are you telling the truth? They'll say, of course, yes, Your Honor, I'm telling the truth. Doesn't mean you should believe the person. Yeah, I mean, what? The rational reporter says TOE is too unintuitive for the human mind. Thoughts? A theory of everything. There's no theory of everything anywhere in the world. There is no theory of everything. We don't have a theory of everything. And when it comes to all these theories, for example, the standard model, quantum field theory, whatever, these things are frighteningly unintuitive. There is nothing intuitive about them. There's nothing intuitive about the quantum mechanical world. Okay? Quantum mechanics is extraordinarily unintuitive, counterintuitive. You cannot grasp it by logic or by intuition. It's just way, way, way too weird for any intuition to ever grasp it. So that's just the deal. That's just the way it is. Okay. So Avinash says ChatGPT hallucinates and makes up its own reality unless you get specific and cross question. I suppose it does. These AI systems have been known to hallucinate. Sam says, why can't I send super chats? Look, I'm not the guy who can answer the question. This is a deal about the platform. You have to ask YouTube if you are trying to send super chats but you're not able to. It's a problem with YouTube. It's not a problem with me. So I'm not the guy who can answer your question. But I appreciate the fact that you are trying to do a super chat. Kapai developer says maybe you should develop an AI plugin to check if the question is related to the topic in the title. Maybe we should. Maybe I should develop an AI plugin to filter out the questions that are not related to the topic in the title. That's a great suggestion, but I'm not sure if I can integrate that with YouTube, and if YouTube will allow me to integrate that into the chat or super chat functionality. Not sure if it will be allowed. Swaraj says currently some scientists are claiming we are inside a black hole. Is there any solid claim? Not even Neil deGrasse also partially supports this. Look, so let's imagine perhaps we're in a black hole. Okay, so if you're in a black hole, we know what a black hole is like. We know how it is like from outside. Maybe it has some fuzzy interior or whatever. It may have a singularity somewhere possibly, or maybe not. But what we see about the observable universe is that we have a background radiation, the cosmic microwave background radiation, which has a temperature of about 2 point something Kelvin. Very cold, very old light. Black holes will not have that. Secondly, we see that space-time is expanding. The universe is expanding. The expansion is accelerating. You won't see that also in a black hole. So then how does that support the claim that we are inside a black hole? I mean, from one perspective, it's an interesting thought experiment that maybe we are inside a black hole. But on the other hand, we have observational evidence that flies in the face of this claim. So doesn't look like it's the case. Sam the Gamer says, can we use Vietnam to stabilize China? No, we can't. Why? Where is China destabilized? China is stable. China is very stable. There's no issue with China and China's stability. And how can you, let's say China is unstable, then how can you use Vietnam to stabilize it? You can't. Or maybe you're trying to use some other word and you have some other meaning beyond stabilize. You mean destabilize? Do you mean counterbalance? I'm not sure. So Nilay says there is a sea wedge between Israel and Egypt. A sea wedge. Have Israel-US consortium ever thought of building a canal through it into the Mediterranean Sea and earn billions of dollars and divide Egypt for the billions via the Suez Canal? Let's see. Are you talking about the Straits of Tiran? The Strait of Tiran. Is that what you're talking about? Let's see. So we go to the West Asia region and we're talking about Israel and Egypt. Israel and Egypt. So Israel and Egypt have this common border, the North Sinai Governorate, the South Sinai Governorate. This is Egyptian territory. And there's a sea wedge between Israel and Egypt. So there's no sea wedge here. The only thing is the Strait of Tiran. The Strait of Tiran is down here. This is the Strait of Tiran. And of course, you have the Gulf of Aqaba, which is here. So now the question is, where is the sea wedge that you are referring to, sir? If you want to, let's say, build a canal, then you build a canal through the smallest portion, right? The smallest land route that connects, let's say, the Gulf of Suez or the Red Sea with the Mediterranean. And that obviously has to go through this region. It also obviously has to go through Al Suez and so on. Because if you want to go through, let's say, over here, then it's a much longer, much more expensive canal you have to build, which will take, I don't know, decades possibly. So then my question is, what's the point of doing all that? And why would the US want to deprive Egypt of whatever money is earning? Why? Egypt is a nice little vassal of the US, so works for them. Um, Deven says I was asking about engine oil viscosity. Uh, what was the question? Okay, 5W40, 10W50 engine oil viscosity. Well, I am not familiar with engine oils and their viscosity, so I don't know. I don't drive. Okay, I was born to be chauffeured around, I suppose. So I don't drive, and I have no idea about engine oil viscosities. So sorry. uh, so McLevin is saying, can you do one regular chat weekly? Super chat is dull. There is a lot of merit to this suggestion. So yeah, I can do one regular chat weekly. Why not? Of course I can. I can. So next week let's say I'll do one regular chat. Why not? I'll do it. Maybe Monday, maybe Wednesday or something. We'll do one regular chat. And I'll put that out in advance in the weekly schedule so that you know which day is the regular chat. I'll do that. Of course I will. Right. Okay. Now, what else do we have? Rahul says, apart from UFO sightings, what are the signs indicating the US has achieved AGR or even ASI? There are no signs. There are no signs. Why would you let out some signs that you have achieved something brilliant, a big technological breakthrough? You will want to keep it under wraps. You won't put it out. So I have seen no signs indicating any such things. Apart from UFO sightings, well, even those are not really verified. So what can I say? Siddharth says, why is there evidence of migration from the Caspian Sea to Iran, but not from India? If the Greeks and Persians were expelled Indians, many Iranians are genetically distant from Iran, Indians, even Brahmins, and closer to Germans. Look, like I said, Iran has been under foreign occupation for about 1400 years. So the people of Iran, half of them are not Persians. The people I'm talking about are the Persians. I'm again repeating myself over here. If you look at the Persian people, not the Arabs who are Iranian citizens, or the Azeris who are Iranian citizens, or whoever else. I'm talking about the Persians themselves. They are genetically close to us. The true Persians. Okay. Now, when it comes to evidence of migration, etc., 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 let me give you a book recommendation. It's an old book, but it's a good book nonetheless. Okay. Richard Pocock. Greece, India. Okay, Edward Pocock. India in Greece, or Truth in Mythology. It's a pretty interesting book, I would say. Okay. And is this available online? I suppose it is. I have a version over here. So I think, if you actually spend the time to do some deep research and do some study, you will find that there are lots and lots and lots of connections between India and Greece, India and Persia. Today's researchers will want to obfuscate all of this for various reasons, because of various agendas. But the truth is that there are very deep, very profound, very ancient connections between India and Greece, India and Persia, obviously, and so on. But if you want to look at only selected information from new research that claims that no, the Iranians have nothing to do with India. Many today's Iranians, are descendants of people who were brought into Iran from the Caucasus region by the Turks. They were settled in Iran from the Caucasus. The Caucasus region is said to be the birthplace of the Caucasian race, not the Persian race. That's the European race. So obviously those people will be genetically closer to people from West Europe or so, whatever. So think about it logically, and then it makes sense. Okay, Parathe says, Parathe. POK gets a JNK type before 2019 merge, if ever. I am not dealing with POK budgets again and again and again and again. It happens. Rishi says, any thoughts on why the government is not focused on education? Maybe the government sees things better than we do. Maybe the government is aware of various threats that are way bigger than education. Maybe there are things that need more immediate attention. Of course, we have ministries. So it doesn't mean that government can only focus on one thing at a time. The government has so many departments, so many ministries. They are all funded, very well funded. So the question is, why are they not focusing on education and all that? Maybe they feel it's too much of a headache. Maybe the government, the leadership thinks that the education system is fantastic. Maybe they think it's great. Maybe they think it's the best education system in the world, which would be very concerning, but it's a possibility. And that's why they don't want to change it. Or maybe they think it's just too much of a headache to change it. The Chinese didn't think so. The Chinese transformed their education system in 30, 40 years from the 1980s onwards, but they spent trillions of dollars to do that. Maybe our politicians think that, you know what, if we spend $1 trillion on the education system, how will we give freebies to people who otherwise won't vote for us? It's because we are a democracy. That's why we can't do these things, and so on. So all kinds of problems, you see. MM says, how to manage IT job plus build business plus learn AI plus learn business plus family time. All are different topics and drains me out in 24 hours. Everything is a priority. Yeah, that is the problem in today's world. You have to spend time with family. Of course you do. You have to manage your primary job, without which you don't have an income. But then you also want to do a side business. You want to do something on your own, which will hopefully eventually one day free you from your daily job, which means that you have to build a business. To build a business in today's world, you have to learn AI. Of course, you have to learn business also. So then how much time do you spend and where do you spend it? How much time do you allocate for these things? And that's always going to be a big problem. So for most people, if you have a family, you can't do this. Yeah. Otherwise, you have to sleep 4 hours a day for a couple of years, which will destroy you mentally. So yeah, you've got to find a solution. Everybody's situation is different. Everybody's circumstances are different. You will have to make some sacrifice somewhere. You'll have to do some proper time management. Maybe it will take you longer to achieve your goals. Maybe instead of 6 months, it will take you 3 years. But that's fine. So find your solution. There is always a solution somewhere, but you have to find it. Everyone's set of circumstances are unique. Everybody is faced with a unique set of circumstances. And each set of circumstances demands a unique solution. So you're going to find it. You're going to find your own solution. So all the best, sir. All the best. The rational reporter says, rephrasing something, the correct TOA, the theory of everything, might be too complex for a limited biological human brain to comprehend, let alone come up with. What are the odds? I agree. It's possible we humans, given the current state of our intelligence, the limits of our intelligence, we may never be able to come up with a theory of everything. It's true. It's very likely. I mean, what's the average IQ? IQ is like Taleb says, it's a pseudo-scientific swindle. But let's say IQ is the indicator of how intelligent the human race is. So what's the average IQ on the planet? Maybe around 100. Reasonably intelligent people are 120. Good intelligence is 150, let's say. The limits of intelligence are 160, 170, right? But maybe if you really want to understand the universe properly, you need an IQ of 500 or 1000. Well, no human can reach that. So maybe it's true that it's simply not possible for us, given the current level of our intelligence, to ever come up with a theory of everything. It's possible. So I agree. That's a possibility which we have to consider. Sushant Gurjar says, was there no desert in northwestern India when the Saraswati River was flowing there? Most likely it wasn't there. So let's look at the map of northwestern India. Let's look at the map. So we have the map here. We're going to look at the satellite imagery. Yes. And we can see that there is this big barren patch of land, which is mostly barren, in western India. And there is this green tongue, which is canals and stuff, of course. Okay, it's not the Saraswati. It's canals. But if you look at satellite images, etc., you will find the dry riverbed of the Saraswati. It's very visible, very large, and so on. I'll not dig for it right now. But the thing is this: when the Saraswati flowed through the region would have been very green. And it is possible that, the Thar Desert was the creation of the Thar Desert may have been the outcome of the slow process of drying up of the Saraswati. So maybe the Saraswati was no longer able to flow all the way into Gujarat, And that's why it just became a huge puddle somewhere in Rajasthan. And that is what would have eventually created a lake for a while, for maybe a few centuries. And then when the lake dried out, it became a desert, just like the desert that you have, which is left behind from the Aral Sea. So where is the Aral Sea? Where is the Aral Sea? It's not even there now. Okay, this was the Aral Sea. So if you come here today, it's just desert, right? It used to be a sea just a few decades ago. So I think that's how the desert came to be, the Thar Desert. And even the Kutch Desert, I'm sure in the past it was not so desertified. The Saraswati, I'll tell you what, if you look at this region, do you see something very strange here? You see here this subsurface trench, which is clearly the consequence of a river that flowed in the region. But where's the river today? There's no river here. There is no river whatsoever. So this is the ancient mouth of the Saraswati. This here, enormous ancient trench underwater. This was the Saraswati Delta, clearly. And maybe the Kutch Desert also was created by the drying of the Saraswati. So my point is, when the Saraswati flowed through the region, there would probably have been no desert in western or northern India, northwestern India. Okay, Godliness says new reports mention black box of the deadly 787 is in US hands now. It seems even this government is compromised. Okay, let me read further. US is superpower, we accept, but do we really need to mend our ways so much for them? No, I'll tell you what happened. The government is not compromised. That's why they gave away the black box to the Americans. It looks like whatever facilities we have, they are not sufficient to decode the information in the black box. It's also possible that this black box, this flight data recorder, it may have some encryption or something that only the Boeing company can decrypt. So this is what the Americans do, right? This is another example of let's say a backdoor kill switch, whatever. Like I have been saying for a long time that we should not buy the F-35 because it will have all these things that we will not have access to. Even if you own the equipment, we will not really own it because much of that will be under firewalls or encryption or something, and the US will be able to control stuff. So when it comes to these black boxes, okay, the data is stored in the black boxes. It's always being stored when the flight is operational. But if something goes wrong and you recover the black box, and let's say you in India try to extract the data, you will find that it is safeguarded behind encryption, and the Americans won't allow you to decrypt it. They won't give you the keys for decryption. They won't allow you to decrypt it. So they will say that if you want to know what happened, you have to send the black box to us, and we will tell you what happened. This is how they maintain full control over things. So it's not that the government is compromised. It's just that we haven't managed to develop the means to decrypt this stuff yet. That's the deal. So I think that's what's happened. The government is not compromised. It's just that we still haven't got the technological know-how to do this. So what we need to do is we need to develop our own jetliners. Okay, commercial jets. Why do we need to buy these foreign commercial jets? We need to develop our own commercial jets. We can buy engines from the West, for example, from Rolls-Royce or whatever. Or maybe we can buy Russian engines. Or maybe we can have joint production of various Russian aircraft in India. And we can develop our own black box system. So these are the solutions we can have. Alvin Rodriguez says, will Ibrahim Traore be the next Muammar Gaddafi? Well, I hope not. I hope not. The guy is going up against the West. Do you know who Ibrahim Traore is? Let's Google him quickly. Niger. Ibrahim Traore. Burkina Faso. So there have been coups, liberations in Burkina Faso, in Niger, and so on and so forth. So Monsieur Ibrahim Traore is this guy, is this gentleman, right? and he is strongly aligned with Mr. Putin. He wants to liberate his country from Western colonialism, from French and American colonialism, and he is a good friend of Mr. Putin. Mr. Putin seems to be an admirer of Mr. Traore, and so on. So that's why Alvin is asking the question, will Ibrahim Traore be the next Muammar Gaddafi? I hope not. I hope not. I think he's a well-meaning man. He wants to do something good for his country. And I hope he doesn't go down the road of Muammar Gaddafi, which is what the Americans did to the man. Yeah, I hope not. I seriously hope not. Saurav says, how different are modern day Iranians and ancient Persians? As I've read somewhere that 50-60% of them are North Caucasian Muslims who were brought in during Safavid times. I've been saying this for the past 2 hours, right? That half of the people of Iran are not Persian. They are not of Persian ethnicity. Many of them were brought in from the Caucasus region during the Turkic occupation of Persia. Yeah, about 50% of them are non-Persian. So if you look at the ethnic makeup of Iran today, roughly 50% is the Persian people. Then you have Arabs who are Iranian citizens. Then you have Azeri people who are Iranian citizens. Then you have people of Caucasian origin, Caucasian descent, who are Iranian citizens. So about half of the Iranian population is non-Persian. And much of the population could also be mixed now, right? So genetically, we know that the Persians were our cousins, our relatives. They were the descendants of an ancient migration out of India thousands of years ago. So if you had done a genetic comparative analysis of the population of Persia and the population of, let's say, Western India, around 1500 years ago, you would have found that the people are very, very much alike, very similar genetics. Let's say you take a population from Gujarat and you take a population from Persia in the year 500 AD, and you do a genetics study of both, you'll find they'll be very similar. Or Kutch, or Sindh, or Balochistan, or whatever, in Persia, you'll find they'll be very similar. But today, if you do a study of the population of Persia and the population of India, you may find that maybe 20-30% of Persians are similar to us, or of Iranians are similar to us. Maybe 60-70% of Iranians are closely related, are more closer genetically to populations from the Caucasus or maybe Eastern Europe or whatever, compared to us. So this is demographic re-engineering that was done by the Turks in Persia. So lots of modern day Iranians are not that close to us genetically. It's only those who have somehow retained their Persian roots who would be like us. Akshit says Balfour Declaration in Israel like India-Pakistan partition. Not quite like that. Israel wasn't partitioned out of something. It was created as an artificial nation out of territories that already existed. And of course, that was the land that was the original homeland of the Jewish people, so no question about that. The Balfour Declaration was simply a statement of intent that, we support the creation of an Israeli nation, a Jewish nation. So when was the Balfour Declaration? It was about late 1800s. When was it? And Balfour. It was 1917, of course. Yes, 1917. Lord Balfour and Arthur Balfour. And this was a key moment in the history of Zionism and so on and so forth. So Britain wanted the support of the Zionists in various things, and that's why the Balfour Declaration was put forth, and so on. So it was not like the India-Pakistan partition. Very different. Everything says, is high-tech agriculture the next IT for India? Well, it depends on whether we are able to embrace high technology. Because see, what happens is this. If you make agriculture high-tech, then it will generate fewer jobs because everything will be taken over by these massive machines and a lot of automation will happen. So what will happen is that you will need very few people to do all the agriculture. You will not. So today, why agriculture is such a big thing in India is because the agriculture sector in India is an unskilled sector. It's a low-tech sector. That's why it generates so much employment. That's why so many people are employed in agriculture, right? And that's why the so-called agricultural sector and people who are employed in that, they are such a big vote bank. And that's why no politician can dare to go up against the agriculture sector. Now, if you make agriculture high tech in India, you will need very few people to manage the machines. And then what happens to all those people who were employed in these little jobs in agriculture? What happens? They become jobless. So it's a big challenge for India. So if you do this, if you make agriculture high tech in India, then you will need to provide jobs and employment for those millions and millions of people who will come out of agriculture, because now there are no jobs. How do you do that? For that, India needs to really reorient itself, and there will be radical transformation needed in India. That will take time. So I think high tech agriculture will take time to become a thing in India. It will take time. Light 2.0 says, throw some light on lucid dreams and astral projection, sleep cycles, Project Stargate, and everything else under the universe. Okay, lucid dreams is supposedly something in which you're able to control your dreams. So you're dreaming, but you're dreaming and you're able to control what happens in the dream. That's supposed to be lucid dreams. Astral projection, I have no idea. It's not a scientific thing. It's supposed to be a pseudo-scientific concept. I have no idea what it is. It's supposedly where you go into a different body, or when you're sleeping, your body your consciousness goes somewhere else or something like that. I don't know beyond that. Sleep, we sleep, right? Sleep cycles, I'm not sure what that is. Project Stargate, I have no idea. Project Stargate was supposedly about remote viewing. So you are supposedly in a room, and you close your eyes and you think about some place, and you can suddenly see what's happening there. So all of this, well, yeah, I'm not sure how true all of this is. Yeah, not sure about that. Okay. Swami Jen says, not live chat but comments. So some people want me to do non-super chat live chat, which I'm fine. Now Swami Jen wants not live chat but comments. So I'll tell you what. I have done more than 250, 260 episodes of our Ask Abhijit. Most of those episodes have been me taking questions from the comments. And those were really good questions because I personally selected each and every one of the questions. You understand? Now, do you understand how much time and effort and energy goes into that? I have to read hundreds of comments. And then I have to shortlist maybe 50, 60 comments. Then I have to go through all those comments again. And I have to take 20, 30 of the best questions. It takes an entire day to do that. Do you know how much time it takes? How much effort it takes? How many hundreds of hours I've spent doing that? It's enormously time consuming. I don't think anybody appreciates how much time I've spent doing all this. So of late, I said, okay, I will not take questions from the comments. I'll do live chat. Then I found that in live chat also, I get hundreds of questions. I miss a lot of good questions, right? And sometimes the questions are silly and so on. So then I said, let me experiment with super chat. Because when somebody is putting money to ask a question, they'll ask more serious questions. And I found that overall, generally, the quality of questions in super chat is better. But not always. Not always. Some people will even ask silly questions in super chats. That's what I've also seen. So I think if you want the best quality of questions, then I should personally go through hundreds of comments and select the 20, 30 best questions from the comments. But that is enormously time consuming, and I don't really have that much time. But I still want to continue this. That's why I will either go on do super chats or live chats. So maybe once a week or twice a month I can do non-super chat live chats. But in the live chats, when I switch off the super chat, what happens is that I have to go through all these questions. They're coming up very fast. I'll miss some of the good questions, and there's no guarantee that I will find a good question. Sometimes I'm just wondering which question do I take, like that. And sometimes I'm just quiet and I'm going through questions. So when I go for super chats only, then I don't have to think which question to take, which not to take. So that's why I have chosen of late, after hundreds of episodes, that I will turn on the super chat. And going forward, it's going to be mostly super chats. Once in a while, I will do live chat, but I don't think I have the time or the energy now to go through hundreds of comments and shortlist them, and all that. It's just the way the channel is evolving. It's going to be that way. So I am sure it will not please everybody. And it's impossible for one person to please everybody in the universe. So I'm just doing the best I can. Please, if you can appreciate it, please appreciate it. Otherwise, it's okay. That's what I can say. Okay? I'm trying my best here. I have done what? More than 250 episodes. What, 263 now, right? So many. I must have answered thousands of questions. There must be thousands of hours of me answering questions here. And so on. Okay. Naveen Kumar says, is living forever possible? Brian Johnson is trying. It's not possible. The Rational Reporter says, if Indian culture, Ramayana, Mahabharat, etc. are packaged and sold as AAA games, the world would go berserk. $2 to $3 billion seems to be a fine investment for soft power, and so on. I know. We are the originators of the superhero genre, right? Isn't it? Today, the West has all these movies, multiverse of misery and whatnot, in which everybody is a superhero. But we are the originators of the superhero genre. We had actual superheroes in this country, in our culture, in our civilization. And the West has slightly copied all of this, but they've portrayed it as something so they've coined this new term, superhero. Not hero, but superhero. A person with supernatural characteristics. This was us. So they've stolen our culture, they've copied our culture, and they've repackaged it. So just think about it. We have these two incredibly ancient historical events, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. You can learn so much from them, such complex storylines and all that, and all these things really happened, right? So imagine if you have sufficient funds to create, let's say, a 5-season series, okay, with each season has 10 episodes, let's say. So total 50 episodes. You do it over 5 years. 10 episodes per season. Each episode is, let's say, 1 hour long. And you have the production quality of something like Game of Thrones. Imagine the impact it will have on the world. Today, we've had many versions of the Ramayana in which the actors and actresses, they wear stage costumes. It's so fake, right? But imagine you have the sufficient amount of funding to make it look realistic, like what you have in Game of Thrones or whatever, right? Then imagine the impact it will have on the whole world. It will transform the way the world imagines India and looks at India. And the same goes for the Mahabharata. So the possibilities are endless. The potential is immense. And then if you package that and sell those as games, well, once again, like you say, the world will go berserk. But we are not doing that. Yeah. AVM says, possible that F-35 in Thiruvananthapuram is UK swiping at Trump. So you have the situation where this F-35 fighter plane belonging to the UK landed in Thiruvananthapuram. Now, this is a foreign country's fighter plane, military plane. And they had this aircraft carrier in the so-called Arabian Sea of Saurashtra, off the coast of the western coast of India. And apparently there was some issue and the aircraft was running out of fuel. It was not able to land on the deck of the aircraft carrier because of heavy weather or whatever. And that's why it requested a landing in Thiruvananthapuram. We very graciously, very kindly gave them permission, right, very magnanimously, to land in Thiruvananthapuram. And it's been there for 5-6 days now. The question is, if it was running out of fuel, just refuel and get lost, right? Go back. But it's still sitting there. I'm not sure what's going on. Why is this aircraft still sitting there? Is it a Trojan horse of some kind? Is it partaking in some spying activity, espionage on India? What's going on? Not sure about that, what's happening. So, yeah, I think it's time it leaves. I think it has outlived its welcome in India. It should go back. Otherwise, we should impound it. Our bureaucrats love impounding stuff. This is now confiscated and so on. Impound it. Whatever, yeah. Rishikesh says, how about hybrid episodes? 1 hour of super chat, 1 hour of live chat. Yeah, I suppose you could do that, but the thing about super chats is that when there are so many super chats, then I can't just simply ignore those and then go switch to live chats because people have paid money for it. So at least the least I can do is to answer the questions. So once I turn the super chats on, they will just go on, keep on coming. Then I can't do a hybrid episode without first finishing all the super chats. So it's complicated. You see, it's complicated. The best thing is I do once in a while one episode with just live chat, and the other episodes I'll just keep it at super chat so that I don't have to think too much. I think that's the best way forward going forward. So once in a while I'll do a episode with just live chat, super chats turned off, but most episodes I'll keep the super chats on and I'll take questions from those. Maybe that's the best way forward. Aries Manticore says, what will advanced AI powered warfare look like? What will advanced AI powered warfare look like? Grunt bots, specialized AI powered soldiers, functioning railguns, hyper drone swarms that make current technology look like toys. What do I think? What will AI powered warfare look like? AI powered warfare will be way more deep and involved than you imagine. Let's say I have a stockpile of, let's say, 10,000 cruise missiles and 10,000 ballistic missiles. Okay? No nukes, just regular stuff. So I can have AI program an approach, an offensive approach against my adversary, whoever it is, such that I can completely saturate the defenses, wipe all the defenses out, and completely render the country helpless to any aerial attack. So AI will programmatically give me the best offensive approach. How many waves to launch? What components should each wave have? How many ballistic missiles? How many drones? How many cruise missiles? What is the sequence? What is the cadence? How many waves to launch in one night? What should be the time duration between the time interval between two consecutive waves? Which locations should be hit first, and so on? All of this you can outsource this to AI, and you can have AI launch it independently if you want, right? So just using cruise missiles, drones, and ballistic missiles, you can wipe out a country's air defenses and render it completely helpless. And then you can have AI powered dogs, those robotic dogs to go and take out the infantry of the country, and maybe FPS drones, FPV drones to go and take out the soldiers and so on. So essentially it's science fiction coming true now. I'm not sure about functioning railguns. Railguns are a different technology. It has nothing to do with AI. But yeah, drone swarms, very much. So drones could be autonomous. They could maybe create their own battle space picture based on what they see and function together, network with each other, and give each other a proper understanding of the battle space and take decisions autonomously using AI powered chips or whatever, and so on. So I think AI powered warfare will be like that. It'll be completely, there'll be no human element in that. No AI powered soldiers. I think you may have AI powered dogs or something. Those weird dogs that go out with machine guns on their heads and all that. And you may have AI powered little drones that look like mosquitoes that could perhaps take out human beings and so on and so on. So yeah, it could be very, very different from anything we can imagine today. Vaibhav is giving me the suggestion that how about we bring back the community post session, where I think I just discussed that. It's a lot and a lot and a lot of hard work for me, because I have to go through hundreds of questions in the comments, hundreds of comments, right? And then I have to shortlist maybe 50, 60. Then I have to go through them again and then bring the list down to 20 or 30. It takes me an entire day to do that if I do it properly. From the viewer's perspective, we don't see the effort at all. It looks effortless, doesn't it? Me just sitting here smiling and answering questions. You don't understand how many hours of work went into it. So yeah, it's doesn't make sense for me to do that because it's just too much, too time consuming, unfortunately. Yeah. Okay, so now Anonymous says, what's the importance of Switzerland in geopolitics? Why has no one attacked them? Are they sovereign as they are not part of the EU? Well, no small nation is sovereign, fully sovereign. The smaller you are, the more compromised you are in a variety of ways. So let's take a look at the map. Switzerland is this small little nation that is landlocked. Yeah. To the west, you have France. To the north, you have Germany. To the south, you have Italy. And to the east, you have Austria and Liechtenstein. That is Switzerland. And it's an ancient nation. It's a Celtic nation. You had various Celtic tribes that ruled the place. And it was then genocided by Julius Caesar and so on. So what's the deal? So Switzerland has been reasonably autonomous for a very long time. They don't like foreign interference, and what they do is that they provide various services to the other nations that make Switzerland very valuable. And because of that, all nations prefer to maintain the neutrality and sovereignty of Switzerland. So they are a big banking nation, and the banks are very safe, which means that you can go and deposit all of your wealth and all in Switzerland. It will stay safe over there, and so on. And because of this status, nobody wants to, mess with Switzerland. Everybody wants Switzerland to be left alone. So there is an element of sovereignty. They're not part of the EU. They're not part of the Schengen zone, as far as I know. Yeah, possibly. And they have conscription in Switzerland, which means that everybody undergoes military service. All able-bodied men, as far as I know, have a weapon at home, and they can be brought into service when required if there is any national security problem, any invasion of the country. They have tunnels all over the country, and they have all these hideouts, and they have a very powerful militia, so to say. The armed forces are pretty modest, I would say, in numbers, but essentially the entire male population can be deployed if required on demand, and so on. So it's not that easy to invade Switzerland or attack Switzerland, and it also provides very valuable services to Europe, and that's why Switzerland has remained autonomous, reasonably sovereign. But as a small country, it's very hard for you to be entirely sovereign. So you have to, bend here and there, and so on and so forth. Okay, what other questions do we have? Let us see. Anand says, what was the alternative of light? All temple structures shown using the sun to light up mandir. What do they do in the night? Mashal not going to defend Turks and Huns for 1,000 years. Temples and sun and mashals and Turks and Huns. I'm not sure what the connection is, sir. What's the question? What was the alternative of light? All temple structures shown using sun to light up mandir. What do they do in the night? Well, in the night you have candles or darkness or whatever, or lamps. Mashal not going. I'm not sure what you're asking, sir. I have no idea. I'm sorry. Karthik says, what happened to 14,000 Persian soldiers brought into India by Humayun? They Persianized the Mughal court. Later, Mughals like Aurangzeb and Iranian mothers, were they actually Iranians? I don't know about the 14,000 Persian soldiers, but yeah, you had a lot of Persian officials who came into the Mughal court, and they did Persianize the Mughal court. The lingua franca of the Mughal court became Persian. All the writing, all the official records, etc., were kept in the Persian language. Yes. And people like Aurangzeb, etc., they had Persian mothers. So Aurangzeb may have been like 2/3 or 3/4 Persian or something, if possibly a little bit Indian, a little bit Turkic, all of that. So does it mean that somebody like Aurangzeb was Iranian? No. Culturally, he was Turkic, and from a religious perspective, he was an Arab. And a little bit of Indian blood, little bit of Turkic blood, a lot of Iranian blood. But that doesn't make you Iranian. It's not DNA that matters, it's your culture that matters. So there we have it. Okay. AVM says, don't be apologetic of SuperChat. Every YouTuber does it. There's no apology over here. I just want to provide the best possible value in the easiest possible way without having to spend hours and hours, going through questions. So I think SuperChat is the best solution for me. That way I don't have to think about which questions to pick. I just pick all the super chats, and that solves my problem. And because people are putting in some money, it means that the questions are more serious, not stupid, frivolous questions that I sometimes get. So I think super chats are the right way to go forward. There's no need to apologize. Obviously, I've done more than 250 episodes without any super chats ever, so there's no apologizing over here. Yeah. So anyway, thank you for the comment. I appreciate that. Prasanna Chavan says, why is the UK rejecting the proposal of shifting the F-35 into a hangar? Isn't it disrespectful? We even provided a CISF cover and still such an attitude towards us. Maybe they feel that if we put the aircraft into a hangar, then maybe we can open our toolkits and dismantle the aircraft in the night and then put it back together by morning and get all the secrets. Maybe that's the fear they have. But yes, it is disrespectful. And the disrespect stems from the fact that they think that they are still a world leader of some kind. We ruled you for 250 years. That's nonsense. It's a third-rate world power today. The only utility the UK has for the world is that they are the US's number one vassal. Apart from that, there's nothing. They don't even have their own nukes. They don't even have the red button in London, and so on. It is disrespectful. It's annoying. I think we should make it clear now to the UK that the time is up. You have overstayed your welcome. Take your aircraft and get going. Otherwise, we take the aircraft. Yeah. And we have the right to take any aircraft that's on our territory. There's nothing they can do about this. They came in voluntarily. I think we need to tell them we have maybe 24, 48 hours, get lost. Take it away. I think it's time for that to happen. Aries Manticore says, Abhijit Ayar has told us that F-35s were expensive piles of trash. Okay. Reports are that the US is quietly phasing the F-35s out and are focusing on F-22s and F-47s. Is the US pulling a fast one on us via F-35? Well, we haven't bought it, so they haven't been able to pull a fast one on us. They will be able to pull a fast one on us if we actually end up purchasing this flying trash can. Okay, I'm not aware of what Abhijit Ayar has said, but I myself have said multiple times that the F-35 is a flying trash can. It's garbage. It's an extremely overpriced and underperforming aircraft, and we don't need that. Single engine, that too. Come on. I'm not sure about the US possibly phasing out the F-35s. What's the F-47? What's an F-47? F-47. Okay, it's a planned aircraft. So the Boeing F-47 is a 6th generation stealth fighter jet currently under development by Boeing for the US Air Force. It's a planned aircraft. It's under development. So when is it supposed to be operational, etc., blah, blah, blah. Where does it say? It doesn't say anything. What does Wikipedia have to say about this? When will it become operational? Do we have any idea? Expected to enter service between 2025 and 2029. Okay, that sort of thing. And this is a very beautiful artistic rendering of the aircraft. So they don't have a single operational F-47. It could become operational sometime by 2029, maybe a few aircraft. So they can't really depend on that. They can't really rely on that. So right now, they have a few F-22s. How many F-22s do they have? Let's Google that. How many F-22s does the US have? F-22. Numbers built. How many have been? 195. So 195 F-22s exist thus far, and hopefully, 187 are operational. That's not a very large number from the US perspective. But yeah, so the F-35 is not a great aircraft. It's extremely overpriced and it's very hard to maintain and so on. So I am not aware of these reports that the US is phasing out the F-35s. And they do want us to buy the F-35. So if we buy it, then we'll be the biggest fools in the world. That's what I would have to say. Pritesh says, first of all, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. So during Biden's time, we were discussing that the US is a declining power. Well, I have never said that. But yeah. But what has suddenly changed after Trump got elected? How is it showing so much dominance? So first of all, let me say, I have never ever made the claim that the US is the declining power. I have consistently said that the US has never been as powerful as it is today. It has more than 700 extraterritorial military bases all across the world. It can strike or intervene militarily anywhere in the world at roughly 60 minutes notice. It controls so many countries. It controls NATO, the NATO nations. It controls the EU nations. It controls Japan. It occupies Japan physically. It occupies South Korea physically. It has never been as powerful as it is today. I don't know who has been discussing that during Biden's time that USA was declining. There is societal decline in the US. There is moral decline in the US. But from a hard power perspective, the US has never been more powerful. And now that Trump is president, he's throwing his tantrums. He's throwing his weight around. And the US has the capability to throw its weight around. So it's visible now. Right? So during Biden's time, that was not the case. Biden was a pretty laid-back president. And the US did they start a war? The Ukraine war started during the time, of course, but that was a different story. The US directly did not start it. But beyond that, there was no other tantrum that the Americans threw. But during Trump's time, we have tantrums every 15 minutes. So it is powerful. It is not declining in power. It is actually growing in power. The society in the US is declining. There is societal decline, societal decay, moral decay, all of that. But as a hard power, it's never been stronger. All right. So think of it that way. You have to compartmentalize these two things separately. Societal decay, moral decay is different from your hard power status. Your hard power is superb right now for the US. Society in the US is declining. Moral decay in values and ethics and whatnot. Educational system is becoming crap and so on. But as a hard power, it's still powerful. But we're not sure how long that lasts. So we'll see. Okay, Rahul. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this comment. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Anonymous Scientist says, is BRICS falling apart? It's not quite falling apart, but it's not very cohesive also. There's a BRICS bank and whatnot, but beyond that, it's a coalition of very unlikely partners. India, Russia makes sense for them to collaborate together because they are natural partners. Okay, but India and China are adversaries right now, and China and Russia are natural adversaries. So the core of BRICS is RIC, Russia, India, China, and only Russia and India can work together as natural partners. Russia and China are actually long-term adversaries, and India and China have issues. So BRICS is not a very long-term viable thing. It's something that will continue for a while, but it's not entirely falling apart at this point in time. Not falling apart, but not very impactful is what I would say. Rachit Raj says there's a declassified CIA document on astral projection. I think it proves it. I don't remember accurately. Is that a legit source of info? I'm aware of these supposedly declassified CIA documents. Okay, some speak about Project Stargate or something about astral projection. Some speak about remote viewing, whatever. Okay, just because the CIA has put out some documents doesn't mean it proves anything. It is just a claim. How can we say that something is proved? If the CIA puts out a document making a claim and you can replicate that independently of the CIA using the information they've given, then it is proven. See, this is called critical thinking. How do you know whether something is proven or not? The CIA has made a claim. How have they made the claim? By putting out some research documents in the public domain, in which they claim that so-and-so CIA subjects in so-and-so year did so-and-so thing and this so-and-so thing. It's a claim they have made. So, does it mean it's proven? How do you know if it's proven? It is proven if using that information in the document, you can replicate that experiment successfully. Otherwise, it is just a claim. Blah, blah, blah. So, in my opinion, this is an empty claim. It is not a legit source of info. I am a super skeptical person. I don't believe things that easily. And I don't believe the CIA thing. Ares Montecore says, is it true that Israel remodified the source code of the F-35, sold to them, and improved its operational efficiency to such a degree that the Americans have decided never to share the source codes of the F-35s? I don't know. This is deeply classified information. This sort of information will not be available to somebody like me. Okay? Not to me. I'm a dangerous person. I should not know such information. So, this sort of information, I am the last person who will receive it. It's possible that they may have done it. Possibility exists. But do we have proof? We don't have proof. At least I don't have proof. And I've seen no proof. But now understand this. The US is Israel's number one ally. Unconditional support is given to Israel. No matter what Israel wants or needs, the Americans provide it. Right? So if the Israelis said to America, we have these F-35s, we need the source code, I am pretty sure the Americans would have given them all the source code. I'm pretty sure they would have given it. They will never say no to Israel. They will deprive Australia of source codes, but never Israel. So it is, I think, likely. I think it's highly likely, maybe 90% plus likelihood, probability, that Israel was given the source code. Okay, I'm just making a guess, an educated guess. And if Israel was given the source code, then it is a guarantee that they would have modified it and improved upon it, because they have got very good programmers, no question. Right? Now, does it mean that this would have induced the Americans to decide that we will never share the source code of F-35s? No. No. The Americans would have already decided, even before they gave Israel anything, that we will never give the source code to anybody else. Okay? So, yeah, that's the deal. That's how I see it. Rishi says, what are your thoughts on the current tax system in India? Taxes are high for everything, even a regular car. Will the government try to reduce taxes? I think it will be very good if the government reduces taxes. I think the tax system is extraordinarily overcomplicated for no reason whatsoever. I do understand that the government needs to charge taxes. That's how we run the country, no question about it. But do you need to have such a complicated and cumbersome taxation system? Do you need that? So let's say you are a salaried person. That itself is such a tragedy, so heartbreaking. You're a salaried person. So let's say you're a salaried person. Let's say you earn 1 crore a year. Okay, it's a completely hypothetical number. We are just putting it out there. Let's say you earn 1 crore a year. Or let's say you earn 10 lakhs a month. Okay? Which is 1.2 crores a year. So what happens is that the cycle, right, end of April or wherever it happens, you have to pay your income tax. And of course, your company is going to deduct the income tax and whatever, TDS or whatever they call it, before you even get the salary. So you get the salary with the tax deducted already from it. So you don't get the 10 lakhs per month, you get whatever amount is given to you after cutting off the tax. So the amount that you get is already taxed. Now you take that taxed money, they already pay the taxes. Now you go to a supermarket, you want to buy a Coke, you're going to pay some GST on that. So you paid tax once, you pay tax on that tax. Then let's say you buy a car, you have to pay tax for that car. Then you have to pay road tax. So you're taxed multiple times. It is horrible. It's terrible. Why can't you just levy one tax? I think the taxation system exists just to give people employment. If you can replace this horrific taxation system with a very simple tax system. Everybody will be taxed a simple flat rate, whatever, maybe 20%, maybe 25%, whatever it is. Everybody should be taxed the same tax rate. Decide in which way it will be done and just make it simple. So there is no need for this overcomplicated system. It can be simplified if you want to, and it should be. But I think that the taxation system exists to provide employment to crores of people. That's my hunch. And if you remove employment, then the government will not get votes. So that's the system in India. Anyhow, Shivam Kulkarni, well, thank you so much for becoming a member. Thank you. I appreciate that. Vishal Natha, thank you very much. Thank you. Austin Joseph says, well, first of all, thank you for your kind words, sir. My question is that India has been bending okay. India has been India has been bending over to the US over CATSA. India cancelled many deals with Russia, who has been our long-term partner for 70 years. Your views? Um, you raise good points here. See, the situation is complex. Has Russia been a fair, all-weather friend for India? First, let's address the Russia question. So, Russia during the Cold War, the 20th century, was India's number one partner, very reliable partner, um, and it came to our rescue at times, like the 71 situation, where the Americans sent two aircraft carrier strike groups to India, to the Bay of Bengal, and so on. The Russians sent nuclear submarines and so on. So Russia was a very reliable partner during the Cold War. After the Cold War ended and the USSR became Russia, Yeltsin came to power. Russia's attitude towards India changed significantly, and they kind of were very dismissive towards India for quite some time. So our politicians then needed a new big daddy. So they started looking at the US, and slowly the US started infiltrating India. Okay, at the top levels and so on and so forth. Allegedly. Then Mr. Putin comes to power, and once again relations start becoming better between India and Russia. Now in the 2010s, around 2015 to 2021 or something, Russia started courting Pakistan. Russia sold military helicopters to Pakistan under Mr. Putin. Russia and Pakistan started doing these yearly military exercises together called the Druzhba exercises. Druzhba is the word in Russian which means friendship. Russia-Pakistan friendship. They started doing Druzhba exercises every year. 1 year in Pakistan, the other year in Russia, then again in Pakistan, then again next year in Russia. This went on until 2021. Then in 2022, there was no Druzhba exercise. Why is that? Because there was the special military operation in which Russia needed India's help and support. So you see, even Russia has played these games. Even they have sold military equipment to Pakistan. They also were wooing Pakistan and doing Druzhba friendship exercises with Pakistan. So because of that attitude of Russia's, India also decided to open up its dealings with other countries, signed the catchup with the US and other things as well, right? Perhaps, and when it comes to the FGFA, the fifth generation fighter aircraft, the PAC FA-50 or whatever it was, the Russians were continuously delaying the project. They were not sharing sufficient technology with India and all. They had a very non-cooperative attitude, which is why after spending so much money, India had to pull out of the project. Even when it comes to the aircraft carriers, the aircraft carrier costs were blown out of proportion. India had to pay way much more than what we had initially agreed to, and so on. So Russia has been a difficult partner at multiple times, right? So it makes sense for India to have other options, and that's why India was forced by Russian actions to cancel deals with Russia. Because even after spending so much money, we were not getting what we were paying for. So then it makes sense to not to sink in more money. It was not our fault. It was Russia's fault. This happened. The fighter plane thing and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, if you sign the CATSA, it kind of compromises you. So that's not a good thing, but we did that. And we then bought various American equipment like the Poseidon fighter plane, the Sea Guardian and Land Guardian, whatever, drones, Air Guardian drones, and many more things. The Chinook helicopters, the Apache helicopters, which are not functioning very well, the jet engine deal for the Tejas fighter plane, which is again stuck because of the Americans and so on. So even the American things have not worked out very well for us. Okay, it actually compromises us. But overall, I would say that our more reliable partner is Russia, not the US. The US is a very, very dangerous customer and not a reliable partner at all. So as we grow, as we rise, it makes sense for Russia to once again, deal with us in a better way. So that's where we are. See, geopolitics is like that. Even if you have the best of relations, if you become weak, then your partners will not respect you too much. So you have to grow stronger. Vidhi says, which country has the best education system in the world and why? They say it's Finland. So in Finland, you don't have to pass exams until a certain age and all. As long as you're a kid, you don't have any exams, you don't have any curriculum, you can do whatever you want, you can play outside, outdoors, you can pursue whatever subjects catch your fancy. But eventually it works out fine, and the kids turned out to be very well balanced and very well educated. So maybe Finland has the best education system in the world, possibly. I haven't really studied all the education systems, but I think Finland is said to be the best one. Aries Manticore says the CIA has terrorized the US citizens more than more than any terrorist, drugs, psychological operations, murders, etc. Could it have contributed to the decay of US society? Yeah, well, that could be one contributing factor. Could certainly be one of the contributing factors. The other factors could have been the infiltration of the leftists into all the big US institutions, especially the education institution, and the way they hijacked the feminist movement and the civil rights movement and other movements. Yeah, so all of these things put together have contributed to the ongoing decline and decay, moral decay of US society. Everybody does drugs in the US. It's a rite of passage. You can't think of a single person in the US who, I mean, if you meet an American person, the chances are higher that the person has done drugs than not done drugs at some point in their life. Everybody does drugs. Everybody is on antidepressants or like a dozen pills a day. I mean, the food is terrible. If you spend a month in the US, you're gonna gain 5 kilos at least. Yeah, you're gonna become unhealthy. It's a disaster as a society. So it's not just the CIA. CIA could also be a significant causative factor for sure, but it's a multiplicity of causes all brought together. The corruption in the society, in the system, how big pharma has destroyed the health of the US population for profits, and the politicians have allowed this to happen because they are in the pockets of big pharma. This is corruption at every level of US society. They talk about India being a corrupt society, not society, but a system, the governance system in India being allegedly super corrupt. It's nothing compared to the US. Nothing. Raghav says, Raghav says, there are many Iranian people, migrants in Hyderabad, who even voted for Iranian elections around the year 20,000 and who have dual citizenship, Iran and India. Why are they enjoying the status? Well, what? I'm not aware of this. There are Iranian people, migrants in Hyderabad, who voted for Iranian elections in the year 20,000 in the future, but I'm sure you mean 2000, who have dual citizenship, Iran and India. Well, in India, dual citizenship is not legal. You're not allowed to have dual citizenship. If you have a non-Indian passport, you automatically relinquish your Indian citizenship. Unless you don't disclose the fact you have your foreign passport and you keep two passports. But some people, I suppose, may be doing such things. One hears allegedly that such things happen, but I don't know. So if there are people who have dual citizenship, they're not supposed to have this dual citizenship. Why are they enjoying the status? Well, first of all, I don't know that this is the case, but if it is true, then the government should look into it, and they should look into the legality of the matter. That what citizenship do these people actually have according to Indian law? Is it Persian? Is it Iranian or is it Indian? If they have actually both, then they should be asked to make a choice. Decide. You can only have one. According to our laws, you can only have Indian citizenship if you don't have a foreign citizenship. So decide, do you want to remain Indian citizen? Then you give up your Iranian passports and so on. So that needs to be done. There are so many such problems in India. So many people who are enjoying Indian hospitality. Some of them are civilized. Most of them are not civilized. Some of them are really problematic. I would say Iranians overall are not that problematic as a population, as a people. But when it comes to Pakistanis, or Rohingyas or Cookies or Bangladeshis, we don't want those in India. Big problem. They have no allegiance to India, and so on. So this needs to be dealt with. This illegal immigration problem needs to be seriously dealt with. It's a huge, massive national security issue for us. Okay, the Rational Reporter says, I designed an AI that generates optimized readings for retaining walls in 5sec, my company, organized demonstrations, verified and appreciated it, provided a small salary increment, and abandoned the project. Well, that's sad, and I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. Yeah. So you clearly have some talent, some skills. in designing and creating AI systems. So, what I would recommend to you is spend some time outside of work, at home or wherever, and build some AI systems that solve real world problems, and then monetize those. Because if you provide some value to society, society will be willing to pay you money for it. So identify some existing problems in society, that something that people want but don't have and would be willing to pay for, and create an app or something, create multiple apps, put them on whatever, Android, uh, iOS, whatever, monetize it, and if it works out, if it generates sufficient money, you could say bye bye to your company. So that's one thing you could do. But otherwise, if you're in a company, then the leadership will decide what happens. You decide, you create something wonderful, but they'll say, it's not worth it, or we don't see any value in it. Then they can kill the project, and that's something that makes you feel completely helpless, right? And yeah, I mean, I remember many years ago, I partially read the autobiography of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. I read some of it. It's called Wings on Fire or something, in which he wrote about the fact that he had designed a hovercraft. He had built a prototype hovercraft which worked very well, but his superiors killed the project, and there was nothing he could do about it. But he went on in life and did much greater things. So you can learn something from the great Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Don't give up. Don't feel sad. I know it's sad. I know it's dispiriting, but you have the talent, you have the skills. Use it to create something good and valuable. All right, sir. All the best. Vishal Natha says, okay, Vishal Natha. Well, thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Thank you. You could have asked a question, but all right. Thank you so much. Deepak Tivatia says, why is Iran important for India? Because it's an independent country, reasonably sovereign country that exists in the West Asia region. We don't have any major issues with Iran. We are not enemies by any yardstick. Iran, the US is not a friendly nation to India. It is propping up the terrorist nation Pakistan. It's providing it with nukes and so on. It has funded and financed Pakistani terrorism against India for decades, the US. And the Iranians stand up against the US. So they kind of create a certain balance of power in the region, which if it falls, it will be disaster for India. If Iran falls and becomes a US vassal, then the entire West Asia region will be dominated by the US, and then even Iran will be an anti-India nation, just like Pakistan. That's why it's important it doesn't happen. And Iran has provided us with access to the Chabahar port, through which we can access Central Asia. That also goes away. So overall, yeah, that's why it's important for India. Aries Manticore says, I saw a report that the Indian government has placed a caveat on the Sukhoi 57E deal. Indian radars instead of Russian radars. Certain components to be sourced only from India. What do you think of this move? How will Russia react? I think it's a fantastic move. I think we have certain technological capabilities that exceed those of Russia. I think the radars we are developing, the gallium arsenide or whatever radar it is, I think it will be superior to what the Sukhoi 57 will come with. So I think it is perfectly fair for us to place some caveats, some conditions, that yes, we'll be happy to purchase the Sukhoi 57E and manufacture it in India in large numbers, but we will need these modifications. And we will do the modifications ourselves. So we will install our radars, and some components will be sourced from India. Some weapon systems will be Indian weapon systems instead of Russian weapon systems. For example, the Astra BB Ram, that's a frighteningly dangerous missile. It's a guaranteed aircraft killer, right? We have that missile. Why would we use a Russian missile? So, yeah, so some components can be, some Russian components should be replaced with Indian components. And what do I think of this move? I think it's an excellent move. How will Russia react? I think Russia will react positively to it. And Russia may even possibly want to source some of those technologies from us. And if it happens, we should be amenable to that happening. So I think Russia will react positively to this. Bobby, good to see Bobby again. Long time viewer. Good to see you, sir. I hope you're doing well. So Bobby says, what was China's actual contributions? What's the question, Bobby? What was China? Okay, I think you're saying China. What was China's actual contributions to what? To Indian culture, are you asking, or are you talking about to the field of sports literature, or Persian literature, or quantum field? What's the question, sir? What was China's actual contributions to what? Without that, I will not be able to answer your question. Sorry, very sorry. But good to see you, and I hope you're doing well, sir. Dheeraj Kamath says, ideas for tools or products you would use, I would want to build. What would I want to use? Well, I have very esoteric and very strange uses. Okay, what would I use? I'll have to think about it. I haven't thought about. These days, you have tools for everything, but I'm sure if you think about it. So let's say I'm into geopolitics. Okay, what kind of tool would I want? I would want a system that gives me all the information I need without having to go through so much noise. You see, if you are into geopolitics, if you're an analyst, if you're an observer, you have to go through so many news reports, hundreds, thousands, so much noise, so much junk to find the high signal pieces. So difficult, right? So one thing I would do, I would want somebody to build such a system for me. That's one thing. Of course, there are many other things I can think of. But yeah, if you ask me right now, I'll not be able to come up with ideas, but maybe I can do that over time. Okay. Okay, now Sam the Gamer asks, can we use Vietnam to counterbalance China? As in, we turn Vietnam into an Indian vassal. That's what Sam the Gamer is asking. Yeah, Vietnam can be, to some extent, hypothetically, in a very completely hypothetical scenario, be used to counterbalance China. So what you can do is you can sell high quality weapons systems to Vietnam, sell them the sea-based BrahMos missile, sell them the 800-kilometer range land-based BrahMos missile, sell them the Akash Tir system, sell them various other things, maybe sell them submarines, maybe sell them warships, turn them into a military fortress that China can't bring down. So that is one way you could potentially use Vietnam to counterbalance China, if Vietnam is willing to do that. I would not want to turn Vietnam into a vassal. We don't do such things. But yeah, if interests align, and if they feel the necessity for having a robust military capability to deter China, then it makes sense to do that. And yeah, that way we can do it for sure. That is certainly a possibility for us to explore. Let us see. Anonymous says the US has offered the F-21 with manufacturing in India. Can they put a kill switch if they manufacture in India? 100% yes. They can still put in a kill switch. Because see, manufacturing in India means that we will put all the components together in India. Maybe we can make the airframe in India. We can even melt steel to make the airframe in India, and so much more. But some things like chips and components will come from elsewhere. And that's where the kill switches and things are. Right? And manufacturing in India does not entirely equal technological transfer. For example, the jet engines will come from the US, right? We will not be manufacturing jet engines here. That's a whole different supply chain, and so on. So it doesn't necessarily mean that we are manufacturing, because we are manufacturing in India, we have complete technology transfer. Okay. Ares Manticore says the afterburner for the Kaveri dry engine was developed by the BrahMos Agency with the Gas Turbine Research Establishment, not HAL. It is going to be developed by the BrahMos Agency with the Gas Turbine Research Establishment, which is based in Bangalore. It will not be done by HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. What are my thoughts on this move? Will it be better? I don't know. But the BrahMos Agency, it has historically performed well. It has produced this frightening missile, very accurate, very deadly missile. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be able to do the same kind of work with the Kaveri engine with the afterburner, because it's a whole different technology. But I'm sure the personnel are extremely high quality people, very well skilled in all that. So I think overall good move, I would say. I'm sure there's a reason why the government would have chosen it to happen this way, and I hope it succeeds. I hope it produces the desired results. Yeah, so that's all I can say. I don't really know what's the comparison between the BrahMos agency uh, and GTRA, that combination, versus Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. GTRA has been working on the Kaveri engine for a very, very, very long time, essentially since the 1980s, the gas turbine research establishment. So I think it looks like they are getting into collaboration with the BrahMos agency. So maybe fresh ideas, fresh blood comes in. Maybe you get some better results out of it. Maybe the government has seen it that way or whatever way. So yeah, let's see how it goes. Um, and I hope it works fine. It produces um, the desired results. Okay. Hunter Kenway says, who was realistically the better ruler of India, Chandragupta Maurya or Ashok Maurya? Different rulers. I would say overall Ashok was greater. Chandragupta obviously was the founder of the empire, of the dynasty. He had the help of his great mentor, Shri Vishnugupta Chanakya. But Ashok, so generally what happens when you have a great ruler, his descendants typically are not great. They kind of fritter away the greatness. But Ashok, well, he took it to a whole different level. They unified the entire subcontinent under his rule. So I would say overall Ashok was greater. That's why they don't say Chandragupta the Great, they say Ashok the Great. Of course, he had some flaws. He was a pretty nasty guy. He was a pretty cruel guy, but I don't care. I don't care because he turned India into this very powerful empire, superpower of its time, didn't he? Yeah, so I'll take it. So I would say it's Ashok, the grandson of Chandragupta, who was the greatest. Okay, what else? Let's take this one. Sid says, who will rule AI and robotics world in the future after the US and China? The US might win against China because of its global talent pool. Could India or the EU be third? The EU, well, they have some. I think the French have some AI companies. Mistral is one. I've never seen it, never used it. But I hear that there's something called Mistral, which is reasonably good, which is a reasonably powerful AI LLM model thing, whatever. Yeah. So who comes third is the question. Is it EU? Is it India? Is it Russia? Is it somebody else? Japan is not in the running. Russia, I'm not sure where it is. India seems to be serious about it, but we haven't really seen any progress thus far. Visible progress. It doesn't mean nothing is happening. I would say it would be a race between India and the EU, and I think India would win overall in the next 2-3 years. So I think by, let's say, 2027, it would be the US, China, and India possibly. And the EU also will be involved, but maybe India will overtake the EU. I am pretty optimistic about that. Okay. Another 10 minutes, then we're done. Okay, Raghav says they actually have overseas citizenship. I numbered them around 20,000, like Mirzas, Shirazis, etc., and so on. So overseas citizenship means, do you mean it's Indian overseas citizenship, OCI, or something else? If you have OCI, then I suppose you can stay in India for extended periods of time and so on. I'm not sure what the rules are. Overseas citizen of India means that you have more rights than a person who just gets a visa. So I suppose you could stay in India for an extended period of time and so on and so forth. So yeah, I don't know the OCI rules and so on. But yeah, if you have an OCI card, you can have a different passport. An OCI card is not an Indian citizenship. It is a step below Indian citizenship. It's an overseas citizen of India. So it doesn't give you the same rights as an Indian citizen. It's slightly less. So that way you can have an Iranian passport and an OCI card. That can work, yes. Deepak says, origins of what are the origins of the Jat people? And are the Jat the oldest Indian tribe? There are various theories about this. There's this article by Dr. Subhash Kak, in which he says that the Jats could be connected to the Gathe tribe. The Gathe tribe, who were one of the Scythian tribes, Shaka tribes. There was this Scythian tribe called the Masagate, which is the Mahajats. And their queen was Thomeris. And she defeated Cyrus the Great, Kurush, Vajrak, and took his head off. So yeah, she was great, and so it looks like the Masagate tribe of the Scythians, the Shakas, was the Mahajata tribe. And maybe the Scythians, when they entered India about 2.2 thousand years ago, and they settled down in Western and first Northern and then Western India, maybe some of their descendants are what we call the Jats today. But the Scythians themselves were not a foreign tribe. They were descendants of ancient Indians who migrated out of India thousands of years ago. And they roamed around Central Asia and so on, and then eventually re-entered India. So when they re-entered India and conquered parts of India, there was absolutely no cultural strife, nothing at all. They simply harmoniously assimilated into the Indian population. They were sun worshippers, they were polytheists, and they would have looked just like us, I suppose, or maybe some little bit of foreign influence, maybe here and there, but mostly they were us. So it's possible that the Mahajats, the Masagate, were a Scythian tribe originally, and they entered India about 2.2, 2.1 thousand years ago, and then they became Indian, just like us, like everybody else. So that's one of the theories that is in existence. Yes. Okay. Karsh says, please enlighten us on Google DeepMind's AI-based protein structure prediction technology. I'm not aware of it. I have not used it. I have not seen it. So I can't say. So protein structure is very complicated, right? Proteins are based on amino acids, and protein unfolding and all that is pretty complicated in biotechnology and so on. And that has pretty important biotechnology and other medical applications. And it's pretty difficult to find new solutions to these problems. So I think AI can become a significant force multiplier in that. So maybe that's the deal, but I haven't studied this myself. I don't know what exactly it is. I am not into biotechnology and all that stuff. So I don't know. But yeah, AI has all these applications, scientific applications now, and so on and so forth. All right. See, when I look at the non super chat questions, I will get all these frivolous little questions. I am not against frivolous questions and funny questions, but look at this. I mean, look at this. So that's why I think super chats make sense. I know it's a funny question, and I don't mind laughing. I'm not saying don't ask these questions, but when I take super chat questions, they're typically more serious, right? So, see, once again, is it the same person? Okay, so let's maybe take a couple more questions and then we are done. Couple more questions. People want me to answer that question now. Okay. Look, first of all, do I think Mr. Modi and Madame Meloni make a good pair? Look, they are pretty friendly with each other. They like each other as leaders, right? They have a good understanding, good rapport with each other. But why do we have to go down that route? Yeah. They clearly are very friendly with each other. They have a great amount of comfort and understanding with each other, which is good to see. And it looks like they both admire each other's leadership and so on. So, I mean, I'm happy to see that. Beyond that, there's nothing more to be said about this. That's all I'll say. Sumit says Rajat people and Rajput community girls are comparatively more white than others, even males too, in some percentage. Okay, it's possible. I have not really paid attention to the patterns, but okay, you must have. So, all right. So we are almost at the 3-hour mark. And look at this. More frivolous questions. There we have it. Okay. Okay, let's take this one. Brijesh says, will the Russians help Iran take down B-2 bombers if they try to destroy the Fordo underground nuclear facilities as Ukraine destroy the Russian bombers? The thing about the B-2 bomber is that it's a stealth bomber, and it's not easy for a conventional radar system to pinpoint the location of the B-2. That's why it succeeds. So if you have a large, gigantic radar, you kind of know there's something out there, but it's very hard to pinpoint it and take it down. But it's possible, but it's pretty hard. Now the question is, will Russia help Iran take this down? Well, for that, Russia will have to put some ground forces or some weapons on Iranian territory, which could be a red line for some people and so on. So I think it is pretty difficult for this scenario to be, for me to see the scenario happening. Pretty difficult. It looks like Iran is more or less on its own. And if Russia gets involved in the Iran-Israel conflict, that's going to be, well, a significant escalation. Russia is already involved in Ukraine, all kinds of issues in Ukraine. Now, if you also start this new war, it would be very counterproductive and very ill-advised. I don't think Mr. Putin will go down that road. So it looks like Iran is on its own, sir. Looks like that. Vinay Joshi says, is Pakistan suddenly supporting Israel? Yes, it is. Of course. Pakistan will support whoever the Americans ask them to support. Pakistan is a mercenary nation. They are a nation for sale. Their leadership is for sale. They will do whatever the Americans will tell them, even support the Yahudis. Right? So that's what Pakistan is doing. What about the Ummah, the Islamic community? Who cares? Money, 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 money. Money, money. Swaraj Sahil says, why Indian government didn't support Israel to build telescope like Hubble, James Webb, and unique satellites like Voyager, Mars Rover, etc., etc., etc. Use Google. What? Notebook. I'm not sure about all that. Look, India is a developing nation. And a Hubble or a James Webb is a huge luxury we can't afford. Okay? So that's in Voyager for space exploration. No. We will only develop technologies that will allow us to set foot on other planets and so on and expand our footprint eventually. Beyond that, scientific exploration and all that we'll do when we are a super rich nation. Not right now. It doesn't make sense for us to do it right now. So that's why. When you are a poorer nation, your priorities are limited. That's why. McLevin says, you said the British F-35 is a Trojan horse. Can you elaborate how it can be used to spy on us? So it can have sensors, for example. So let's say it's like this. F-35 comes and lands in Thiruvananthapuram. So India will be tempted to use various remote sensors in the region to try and figure out the capabilities and stealth characteristics and other things of the F-35. So we will activate all our sensors, right? But maybe the F-35 will have sensors inside which will then check out our sensors and try and figure out what the frequencies are being used and what are the characteristics and capabilities of the Indian systems and Indian sensors. So when the Operation Sindoor happened, the Pakistanis were able to kind of map our air defenses. Now it will have changed, but they will get some kind of information. What are the characteristics of our air defense systems? What kind of frequencies do our radars use? And other capabilities of our weapon systems. And this would have been passed on to the US because Pakistan is a US asset. So all of this information about Indian capabilities during Operation Sindoor would have reached the US. But the US has no idea of our capabilities in the south, right? In places like Trivandrum, etc. So maybe they want to find out what's happening there. So maybe the F-35 is full of sensors inside, and it's sitting there waiting for us to activate our equipment so that it can, make some measurements and readings, and then eventually transmit that to the US. So maybe that's the purpose for it being in India, and that's why I say it's a Trojan horse. Okay. Do we have? You've got all kinds of other questions. And if I keep taking them, I will do another 3 hours also. Let me just take maybe a couple more questions. Maybe 2 more questions, and that should be it. Okay, let's take this one. Gaurish says, when the Indian plate collided with the Himalayan, Eurasian plate, the Himalayas were formed in the north and northeast. Why don't we see a similar massive mountain range in the northwest region? Well, we have the so-called Hindu Kush mountains, in the northwest, the Karakoram Mountains, and so on and so forth. We have mountains all over the place. So it's like we have multiple mountain ranges. The Himalayas are the most visible ones, but they're not the only mountain range. Okay, we have other mountains too. Okay. Sand says, I have an idea to create infinite energy and want my opinion using gravity and Bayawans. Gravity and Bayawans. What's a Bayawans? Buoyancy. You mean buoyancy? Gravity to drop weight and buoyancy to bring it up. Well, if you actually do the calculations, it doesn't work. There's no such thing as infinite energy. It won't work. Lots of people have been trying it for centuries. It's not possible for me to explain why it doesn't work without drawing force diagrams and equations and giving you equations. But if you work it out from a physics perspective, from Newtonian physics perspective, it doesn't work. It's not possible to have infinite energy. Other says, how is the UAE with zero taxes, generations ahead of India in development and prosperity? Because of oil. Oil is money coming out from the ground. That's why. That's why. Karan says, and this is the final question for the day. Karan says, how do we claim Scythians are of Indian origin if we don't prove R1A is of Indian origin, as we don't have convincing evidences in ancient samples and so on? So let us wait for the samples and things to come. It will take another 5-10 years and then we will make the claim. But I can see the patterns and I know it. How do I know the Scythians are of Indian origin? See, genetically, they may be very diverse. They may have picked up genetics from all over the place. Mongolic, Turkic genetics, European genetics. In Ukraine, you had Scythian cities, and those Scythians were white Scythians, Ukrainian like Scythians. So why do I claim the Scythians are of Indian origin? Well, there are multiple reasons. One of the things is language. So we have some attestation of the Scythian language, in which it's you can see that it's got clear similarities of any Upper Brunch language that would have descended from Sanskrit. Then if you ask yourselves, what's the origin of Indo-Europeans in Central Asia? Then it's clearly, I mean, if you look at the historical, known, literary, etc. evidence, it would come from the expulsion of various clans that happened as a consequence of the outcome of the Battle of the Ten Kings, and so on. So there are multiple patterns that tie together, which tell me that the Scythians were originally an Indian origin ethnic group, which went and all across Central Asia, and Central Asia was then called Scythia for a couple of thousand years at least. And one of the Scythian clans was the Mahajata, right, the Masakate, and you had Queen Tomirish. Her son was called Swarga Gapitis or something like that. Okay, I forget the name. So if you look at the linguistics, if you look at the names, they had a king called Parthatwa and so on. So there are so many factors that tell you that there is an Indian origin to the Scythians. So let's not. And once again, like I was saying yesterday to somebody else, genetics is not the main thing. Culture is the main thing, and genetics dilutes over time. Once a group goes out of India and spends 2,000 years out of India, I promise you that genetics will dilute. But if they can retain the culture, then that remains the original culture, and so on and so forth and so on. So, well, there you have it. That's the final question for the day. It's a very interesting topic, the Scythians. I have been studying Scythians for about 20 plus years. I got interested in this in the early 2000s because I was researching my own origins. I mean, I never liked Indian history. Indian history was always depressing for me because of all the defeats and all that stuff. But then when I got curious about my own ancestry, my own origins, I was like, what is the ancestry of my people? Of people who have the surname Chavda? And that's when I started looking into things. And then there were all kinds of claims that maybe the Chavdas are Gurjars, or maybe they are Scythians, or maybe they are Kushans, or maybe they are Huns. And that's how I started looking into all this. And then over the years, it became clear that the Scythians were of Indian origin originally. But if you want me to give you the answer, I'll have to find so many different sources and put them all together. That makes sense to write an article. Then, yeah. Okay. So with that said, this is the end of today's session. 3 hours, 10 minutes. Pretty respectable. Long time talking. So I'll end it over here. Thank you so much, everybody, for your questions, and I will see you very soon in next week's live streams. We'll do a lot of those. So with that said, I will end it over here. Please keep asking questions, keep learning, keep thinking critically, keep raising your standards, and I will see you very soon. Thank you. Bye bye.